Hurley, Deputy Warden Agats, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Wright on the screen. In the house, we've got Councillor Wilhelm, Councillor McDermott, Councillor Kellum, and Councillor McKenzie and myself. And we are now live. I've got the official word. Okay, so we're going to call the meeting to order. I believe we're 9 o'clock or shortly thereafter. Yes, we are. Okay, we'll start with a moment of reflection. Thank you. Speaking of moment of reflection, I think we got to be awfully glad we're not in Afghanistan. We're on the east coast of New York or of the US right now, because it looks like it's going to decimate some of those big cities today. Anyway, we're fortunate to live where we do. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, you can do that now or at any point in time through the meeting. And seeing or hearing none, confirmation of the agenda, and I have no additions or deletions. Motion to approve the agenda as presented. Councillor Hurley, seconded by Deputy Warden Agats. Any discussion? Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Now we do have consent agenda. And we have items 5.1 to 5.23. And we also have the council minutes from August 5th, 2021. Items that are interested to be pulled for discussion. I see Councillor Hurley hand up.
5.17.
Yeah, I just gotta make mark of these, so don't forget one down the road here. Councillor Agats, you had your hand up.
5.23.
Okay, Councillor Katzenberg.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. I'd like to look at 5.8, 5.11, and possibly 5.19.
5.8, 5.11. And what was the last one? 5.19?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to move these down the agenda or do you want to discuss them right now? Actually, I know the one 5.23, we're going to move down to, well, we'll put her somewhere down here. How about in council reports? Does that work?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. Councillor Hurley, do you want to discuss yours now? You want me? We just move them all down to council reports. How's that? You're good at that, Councillor Katzenberg? Okay, so all those items are going down to under council reports. Okay, so I have items 5.1 to 5.23, with the exception of 5.8. 5.11, 5.17, 5.19, 5.23, and we have the council minutes of August 5th, 2021 for approval. Moved by Councillor McDermott, seconded by Councillor Wilhelm. Any further discussion? Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Okay, we're going to move on. So 6.1. We have presentation code of conduct complaint report, Aaron Burles. So I take it somebody's going to come on the, oh, there we go.
Good morning, Your Worship.
Good morning.
Good morning to all council members. Perfect. Is my audio okay?
It's perfect.
Okay, great. I apologize, as I was rejoining there as a panelist, I didn't quite get the last of what you said, but if you're comfortable to proceed, I can jump right in.
Yes, we're ready to proceed.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, as far as the presentation goes from Meriden Burles, who, as everybody here knows, acts as the Integrity Commissioner for the County of Perth, the presentation is relatively short in the sense that Council has both reports on the Code of Conduct complaints that were made against 2 council members. They were presented with your agenda materials for this meeting. I don't propose to take you through both reports in detail, as I'm sure you've seen they are both quite detailed and comprehensive. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions on the reports. The primary purpose of the presentation and the role of Council is, having read those reports and our proposed recommendations, to consider and vote on the recommendations specifically. And the recommendations are just that, they are recommendations. Council is not obligated to adopt them. Council can consider them and decide how they would like to proceed. Importantly, both councillors that are respondents, Councillor Kassenberg and Councillor Kurlik, have a chance to address Council with respect to the recommendations only. They have both already had opportunities to respond on the factual findings to us directly, and their responses were carefully considered, and where appropriate, changes and corrections have been made to the reports following their responses. However, they have not had an opportunity to respond on the recommendation piece specifically, which is what they have an opportunity to do today to the other members of Council. So with that, I can turn it back over to anybody that might have any questions about the reports or any specific issues or anything I've just set out.
Okay, thank you. So I think what we'll do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you're kind of the one in charge here. We will deal with the first one with Councillor Kassenberg first, and then we'll let him give his response here shortly. And then once we've dealt with that, then we'll move on to the second one. How's that? We'll deal with them individually.
That sounds very reasonable, Your Worship. The only reason I proposed to set out those general points is obviously they're applicable to both, so I didn't want to subject you to hearing me twice. But
I just thought we'd deal with one and then we'd deal with the second. How's that?
That's perfectly appropriate.
Okay, so first off, everybody's seen the reports. So I guess at this point, we could ask if there's any questions with regards to the first report with regards to Councillor Kassenberg. And if there's no questions, then we'll let Todd speak. And I'm not seeing any hands, so Councillor Kassenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. As you see, I have a presentation slot allocated in this agenda, and I would prefer to use that opportunity to make some comments about the process. With regards to the finding, I continue to express my concern about the word disparagement and the words council's decisions. And I will elaborate further on that under the next presentation item in the consent agenda, or in this agenda, the presentation agenda.
Okay, so your report to council is what you really want to discuss?
I think it's appropriate for me to pick up the themes from my response to the Integrity Commissioner's report under the agenda item that has been listed for that purpose.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the Integrity Commissioner, should we deal with that first? We should deal with that first?
That would be my suggestion, Your Worship, only because some questions may arise to us as the Integrity Commissioner, stemming from any comments that Councillor Kassenberg would like to make. And certainly if it can be helpful that it can provide some context or response, I'm happy to do so. So I would propose that we should certainly deal with that while I'm still in the room, so to speak.
Okay, so I'm going to let you go ahead right now, Councillor Kassenberg. This is all new to me, so.
Thank you, Mr. Warden.
If I make a mistake, you'll have to correct me.
Far be it for me to do that. Thank you, Mr. Warden and members of council. I have been through a process about which I have significant concern. It is, of course, inevitable that when a quasi-judicial process is established, there are attempts to imagine how that process can adequately support the intentions of supporting both justice and fairness and outcomes. No doubt there is some reliance on the experience of others, on precedents, on an imagined walkthrough of how the process might work, and even some documentation to support efficiency and effectiveness. From what I can tell, I am the first councillor of the County of Perth to have experienced formal allegations that I was in violation of the Council Code of Conduct. I was thus the first councillor to have a seat in the ring in this process, which I will suggest is shrouded in part from the person who is the subject of the complaint. I have documented at length my concerns about the process in the report that is attached to our agenda package today. That is my perspective as a participant in a process that was, put directly, frustrating, surprising, and anxiety laden. That I had to rely on the assurances of the Integrity Commissioner about various parts of the process was worrisome. That the document trail available through county sources was confusing and difficult to access was further worrisome. I made a statement to media for which I lacked facts, and that could be perceived by some as disparagement of council's decisions. I state with conviction that related to the matter brought to council by me through the notice of motion procedure, this council made no decision. It could not because there was no seconder. A condition of the section of the code that the Integrity Commissioner has applied to my investigation calls for council's decision. There wasn't one. Further disparagement, part of the one finding of the Integrity Commissioner in this matter is a word that is not defined in the Code of Conduct. And the possibilities for its definition would warrant us, for the sake of greater clarity and future councillors, to define our meaning of this word. I know it to see it isn't much of a basis for a definition in our Code of Conduct, where a councillor's integrity is called into question. We don't have agreement that the Merriam-Webster dictionary is the basis for our definition. I acted in good faith and in accord with parliamentary procedure to introduce a motion that needed a voice and that deserved at least discussion, in my opinion. I acted in accord with practice and my own principles and deep belief that all residents and all visitors to Perth County are of inherent worth and dignity, and that we owed attention to be paid, so that we formalized our expression of this, given certain examples of less than ideal behavior on this important issue that has been cited by others. I am glad we did ultimately make progress on this important issue of recognizing diversity and fighting racism. That I have been subjected to an 8-month-long integrity investigation and reporting process with vaguely defined standards and procedures has certainly not impressed me. It took less time to consult with interested parties, draft the text of a charter, review said text, and deliver a report with a charter, which was adopted, than this investigation took. I am stating the obvious. A repeat of this prolonged process with procedures and practices not easily accessed by the one being investigated could happen to any of us and to future councillors. All this said, I have hung my political hat fairly consistently on the notion of bringing facts and evidence to our public decision-making and discourse. I would be the last person privy to information that would have supported my allegation in the media that the silence of my peers at that meeting of council seemed an odd coincidence. And so I fully retract that statement and its intent. The Integrity Commissioner has reported in their final notes, which I had not seen in the draft report, that I was in attendance pre-oath taking at an optional county training day for municipal officials, at which those in attendance were advised about council codes of conduct. This is correct, but incomplete. The presentation by the county's Integrity Commissioner came before this term of council, and I can assert that some who sit on this council were not present on that day, nor required to be. That presentation did not cover the nuances of or open to question this council's code of conduct, for the County of Perth. This can be verified by a submission, should council so wish, of the slides and presentation used by the Integrity Commissioner on that occasion. I and my colleagues in this term of council have not been provided with an opportunity to explore the county code of conduct with our Integrity Commissioner formally until April of this year, 2021, more than halfway through the mandate of this council. This assertion that I must have been in the know is inadequate, and the County of Perth, as my employer, as our employers, as councillors, has a duty which it must meet to ensure that councillors are properly informed about the code, including its apparent yet ill-defined non-disparagement statement. I suggest that we have changes that need to be pursued in the onboarding of councillors, on the text of our code, and on the process provisions of the code. I am frankly reluctant to invite this council to strike a committee, since this is where all of my integrity commissioner interactions started. Yet we somehow need to improve this code to allow for greater transparency. We further need to make it possible for a councillor who is in the minority with respect to a decision, or who fails to have a matter seconded for consideration that she or he has advocated to council through proper procedures, to maintain their position or opinion, and to be able to express about this in reasonable ways without drawing them into code of conduct proceedings. Those are my prepared remarks.
Okay, thank you. First, I'll ask if the Integrity Commissioner has any response to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Of course, Councillor Kassenberg has put forward a number of points. I'm not sure if it would be productive for me to address them in turn. Some of them are responses to factual findings that he has already submitted to us and we have considered in finalizing our report. One thing I would note is that, and I have reviewed Councillor Kassenberg's written response as well of August 22nd that was submitted to Council. I believe that may have been based on the draft findings that were sent to him, but not actually on the finalized report, because the references to disparagement in section 5.7 appear to be quoting from the report prior to us incorporating his comments. And so I would just encourage him to look at the final, including with respect to the definition of disparagement, etc., because his comments were taken into account. Otherwise, I think the most productive way would be for me to answer any questions that anybody might have with respect to Councillor Kassenberg's comments specifically, as there's obviously quite a bit to unpack there.
Okay, thank you. Going to open up to the floor. Questions or comments from councillors? Looks like everybody's on the QT here. I do have one comment. In your verbal rebuttal there, Councillor Kassenberg, you mentioned us as employers of the county. We are technically not employees of the county. We are elected officials. There is a difference. And I have my in-house legal counsel. Am I correct in stating that?
Yes, there's a difference between an elected official and an employer and an employee.
I just wanted to point that out. So no one has any questions? So I have a motion here and I will read it off and we'll see where that goes. That Perth County Council receives the Integrity Commissioner Report complaints 2020-01 and 2020-02. And Perth County Council receives Councillor Kassenberg's response to the Integrity Commissioner. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McDermott, Councillor Hurley. Last chance for comment or questions. Councillor Kassenberg.
Yeah, Mr. Warden, thank you. I think in the interest of being careful, I will declare a conflict of potential interest here and abstain from voting as would be appropriate under the circumstances. As well, that will mean that I will also declare that I will not be voting on the confirmatory bylaw later in this meeting.
I can't say that you have a conflict of interest, but I was wondering if you might bring that up. And I think that's a very valid point, Councillor Kassenberg. So normally we would have you sign something, but I guess we won't be doing that today.
I'll forward it.
Well, I'll have the clerk forward somebody to sign for your declaration of conflict of interest on that. If that's okay with you. Anyway, so I have a motion on the floor and I have a seconder. Those in favor of that motion? That is carried unanimously. Very good. Okay, so now we will move on to 6.3. And I'll go back to our Integrity Commissioner. Any comments on that one just before we start?
Very similar remarks, Your Worship. with respect to the second report, a complaint that was made, a subsequent investigation that followed. And again, council has the factual findings presented to them in the report, as well as our recommendations. The only thing of note here, because I know the reports are long and you may have been a few days since you've considered them, is that with this particular complaint, 2021-01, with Councillor Herlick, we are making a recommendation of a reprimand to be imposed by council, whereas with the prior report, we did not make recommendations of further penalty. So that's the only thing I would note that is of significance and a departure from the previous consideration. But I turn it back over to you, Your Worship.
Thank you. So does anyone have any questions for the Integrity Commissioner before I go to Councillor Hurley? Not seeing any. Councillor Hurley.
I know. Great. Thanks, Eric, guys. No, not much here. Yeah, it's the Integrity Commissioner did a very fair job here of this investigation, if you would. Yeah, I've talked with Miriam Clausen a couple times on the lockdowns. I might talk to her with this in regards when I stepped off the health unit. She addressed her concerns deeply to me as well with, childhood, what's going on there with our children and youth. We had a good conversation around that too, and she has great concerns there too. And we had talk, and I just said, these weights are unequal, they're unfair. This burden is just, the methodology is confusing, and well, the conversation didn't go far. But it was a very good conversation. So yeah, I talked with the OPP as well. Archived internet photos. It's a slippery slope to be going down. And I still stick my ground after yesterday. We're in sad times in Canadian history. These weights and measures are uneven, unfair, unjust, and to be honest, the greatest sin ever. One day I leave this world, I know which way I'm going, and I sleep well at night. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hurley. So questions or comments with regards to Councillor Hurlick's comments? Councillor McDermott.
Yeah, I can't support reprimand because last week the Little Party of Ontario had an event in Ontario and they didn't follow the rules. So if the big boys don't follow the rules, I see no reason to reprimand Councillor Hurley.
Other comments? Seeing none. I have a resolution here. And actually, I forgot to ask our Integrity Commissioner if she had any comments with regards to the response. Sorry about that.
That's just fine, Your Worship. No, thank you, Councillor Herlick, for your response. I will note that Councillor Herlick's responses have been forthcoming throughout. He's to both respondents have cooperated with the process, and that is appreciated.
Okay, so I'm going to read off first a resolution that Perth County Council receives the Integrity Commission Report, Code of Conduct Complaint 2021-01, moved by Councillor Wilhelm. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kellum. Last chance for comments or questions on that report. Those in favor? Carried. Are you going to declare a conflict on this, Councillor Hurley?
I did want to jump in there, and yes, I'm meaning to declare a conflict of interest here. You kind of started talking, and I didn't want to just hack in. So
Well, that's fine, but I know it's not up to me to decide whether you got a code of conduct or a conflict, so I just thought I'd bring it up.
no, thank you, and I was going to chime right in there right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll get the appropriate paperwork out to you as well. Okay, I have a separate resolution, and maybe perhaps before I read this, I'm going to ask for council's thoughts on, so it was recommended that there was a formal reprimand. And I want to know what council's thoughts are on that before I read this resolution. Don't everybody speak at once. Councillor McKenzie.
Well, I guess my question is, what would a formal reprimand look like? What are we talking about here?
Well, I'll pass that back to the Integrity Commissioner.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is similar to what it sounds like in the sense that council would vote to adopt the reprimand, and it would form part of the formal record of this meeting. And that's really the extent of the reprimand. It would be cited obviously as part of the record in the sense that if there were further complaints made in the future, that's something that could be referred to. Obviously, if they're unrelated matters, it may not ultimately form any sort of weight on that consideration, but ultimately would form part of the public record, and that is really the gist of the reprimand.
Councillor McKenzie?
So I guess to summarize it up, basically what it is a statement. It's not a direct action. Well, it is an action, but it's not, what's the word I'm trying to think of, a financial impact or anything like that with regards to Councillor Hurley. It's just a statement that's part of this.
Yeah, so I'm going to either let the integrity commissioner or Annette answer that question. I'm not a lawyer.
No, that's exactly correct. And actually, if you look with respect to the penalties that the Integrity Commissioner can impose under the Municipal Act, a reprimand is specifically distinct from any suspension of remuneration, which is a separate penalty that can be imposed. So in this case, we are not recommending any suspension of pay for any period of time. We're recommending a formal reprimand, which is effectively council collectively, or those that vote in favor of the reprimand, saying formally on the record that they basically agree to denounce, for lack of a better word, this specific action that led to the finding of the contravention.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from staff? Did you have your hand up, Councillor McDermott?
Yeah, like I said before, I can't support that because there's been other people higher up the food chain than us that have went against the rules, and there's been no reprimand or anything for them, so I won't support it.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Higgins.
I too echo.
Or Deputy Warden Higgins, sorry.
It's all right. I too echo what Councillor McDermott is saying. This country, we're all supposed to have the freedom of what we want to do, and we had people fight for that. So I will not support a recommendation to do anything to Councillor Hurley.
Other comments? Councillor Kasenberg.
I have sympathy for the circumstances that we find ourselves in, and it's very difficult, of course, for us to elect to censure in any way a member of our body, because of course we have become a team over the course of the last few years and so forth. At the same time, I think the Integrity Commissioner finding here is important, that in fact, during that period of time, and specifically during that period of time, there was a regulation in place that made it illegal to gather and to be avoiding the public health conditions that were in state at that point in time. I believe that has been lifted now. Perhaps there's still requirements with regards to masking and physical distancing, but generally speaking, the gathering prohibition and so forth at that time were considered matters of law. And I'd be interested in hearing the Integrity Commissioner's comments about that, and perhaps the difference in circumstances between that point in time and today in adjudicating how I will vote on this.
Could you respond, please?
Yes, Your Worship. So the first observation, just as it's come up through a number of comments, is that obviously this is a complaints-based system. We are bound to interpreting the code that we are presented with for this council, for this jurisdiction. It's received that other jurisdictions may have other happenings or instances of similar types of contraventions. In those instances where we may not be responsible for interpreting their respective codes of conduct. Here we're tasked with interpreting this code of conduct, and in this particular situation, the sections that really came out through the investigation as, in our opinion, having been contravened are 5.2 and 8.6, which require all council members to comply with all applicable legislation, bylaws, policies that pertain to positions as an elected officials, and under 8.6, carry out their duties under the Municipal Act and any other act. And in this case, as Councillor Kasenberg has pointed out, the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, or the EMCA, did require certain things, not just of council members, but of everybody. Council members are under a special type of microscope, of course, as being elected officials and setting examples for others. And so in this case, the language of the code of conduct with respect to complying with those laws and legislation is quite clear. I hope that everybody will agree that similar to some of the comments that were made today, our report, as they always do, attempted to be very balanced, to take Councillor Herlich's comments into account. We certainly did. And there were other allegations that were made in the complaint where we didn't make findings. And in fact, there were partial summary dismissals that were made. With this particular photograph without masks at a time when things were arguably at one of the heights of COVID and we were in a really bad situation, as we still remain to some extent, there's really very little can be said to suggest that there wasn't a contravention. So that is the premise on which our recommendation is made. Ultimately, it is up to council to adopt that recommendation, or council may substitute their own recommendation or their own action in place of that recommendation. I hope that's helpful to all.
Thank you very much. I think that was a good response. Other questions or comments? Takes me a minute to scan all the screen. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up. So I got a resolution here and I'm going to read it. You can either accept it or you can come up with your own resolution. The resolution I have in front of me says that Perth County Council formally reprimand Councillor Herlich, who has been found to be in breach of Code of Conduct sections 5.2 and 8.6. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I have a mover in Councillor Wilhelm and I have a seconder in Councillor Eit. So last chance for comments or questions on that resolution and then we'll have a vote. I'm not seeing any hands. Those in favor of that motion? Hands up. Okay, I have to do a numbers count here. 2, 4, 6. That motion carries. So that's the end of that.
Yep. Next.
So it would be 10 to 8. Councillor Herlich.
Oh, again, we'll probably have to have that's a second part, kind of. Is that still part of the first? I guess that is part of the only, there isn't 2 parts to my presentation, so I'm still in pecuniary interest. Thanks.
I actually had difficulty understanding what you were saying at the beginning. It was kind of jumbled.
I am in pecuniary interest, yet correct? Like I have declared pecuniary. Correct.
But you are allowed to make a comment. Or actually, that would have been 10 to 6. Yeah, it wasn't 10 to 8, it was 10 to 6. Councillor Herlich didn't vote.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was well carried. Okay.
10-4.
That would be the end of that. Thank you very much. And I'm going to try and pronounce your name. Daria?
Yes, Daria Perigodova. You would not be the first who would have mispronounced, so I won't hold it
Well,
against
that's why
anyone.
I kept referring to you as the Integrity Commissioner.
That's the
I'm
point well
stupid,
taken.
but I'm not that stupid.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for what you've done here.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all, and wishing you a nice long weekend as well.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, we're going to move on. Next we have staff reports and CAO. We've got corporate vaccination policy, and I believe Marion's going to
Yes,
come in for that.
and Mike are coming in.
So Marion and Mike are coming in. Are they going to come in the room here?
They should be coming in at just.
Okay, they'll be here right momentarily. morning, Marion. Good morning, Mike.
Morning.
So we are at the corporate vaccination policy. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks through the warden. So this report is actually authored by myself and Mike, Chief Mike Adair here as well. And actually, Mike Adair is going to introduce the directive for us.
All right, we're going to tag team this absolutely. So through the warden, thank you. Section 77.7, the Health Protection and Promotion Act, under the Public Health of Ontario, has issued a new directive. It's called Directive 6, and a requirement for different institutions, including those that are operated under the Ambulance Act. And of course, that is our case here today. Hospitals are included, LTCs as well, but in particular for us, we have the requirement to implement a vaccine policy by September 7th of this year. There are two options that really we can move forward with. One is a mandatory vaccine policy, and then the other one is mandatory testing for those who are not vaccinated. So that would be mandatory antigen testing. That's the direction that we have moved forward to council for consideration and approval of this policy. And we're continuing to work on how to operationalize, if you will, this policy in the very near future. So we're almost ready, and we'll be there. We have the antigen tests, and we're working on training and doing everything that we need to do to make this work. So with that in mind, I'm just going to pass it over to Marion to speak from the LR side of things a little bit about this, and then we'll open the floor.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Mike. So basically, as far as the county is concerned, we are following the directive, and we will be in compliance by September 7th. One additional item that was requested was overall statistics that are anonymized about our workforce. And again, as this only applies to the frontline paramedics at this time, in the policy, our scope reflects that. We have shared not just the policy, but the testing procedure with our union partners, and we're working with them as we operationalize the testing for all staff, staff covered under the Act as well. At this time, are there any questions?
Okay, questions for Marion or Mike on the vaccination policy? Councillor Kasenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. It's not exactly on this vaccination policy. I think the question is a broader one, and that is there a plan with regards to corporate intentions for the County of Perth with regards to vaccination and staff?
Yeah, so through the warden at this point in time, we are planning to maintain course with whatever is dictated by the province. Obviously, with the mandating of the vaccine passports, there will be a lot of burden alleviated from most employers in terms of decisions to be made within the workplace. So at this point in time, you know, if council wishes, we could come back with a legal report in camera at the next council meeting, if that is something that is requested.
Another question, Councillor Kasenberg?
Sure. I think, you know, it's obviously earliest day since the vaccine certificate system was announced by the province. I did take note of what I thought was a vague reference to meetings and meeting spaces. And so I think there may be some implications for councils that I don't know that we've fully considered yet, but certainly it's something that I think deserves a report from staff. And if at a later moment we want to look at that and giving direction, I'd be happy to sponsor a motion to that effect for a staff report on this matter for the broader corporate policies with regards to this and the implications of the vaccination certificate system for things like council and committee meetings.
Councillor Wilhelm.
I would agree with Councillor Kasenberg. I would just perhaps look to expand that would include council members too. Not just all county staff, but members of council as well.
Councillor McKenzie.
I would support both comments and yeah, I would welcome a report. And I've got to admit, I'm a little, I guess, a little nervous coming to a facility like this that we have, we're going to be making all the employees have vaccinations. And yet we can come into this building and I'm not sure whether the vaccine passport applies to us to come in here or not. But yeah, just a report to clarify everything would certainly be welcome by me.
Yeah, definitely. And through the word, and just to add, so right now it's we allow for tests. Well, as of September 7th, there is the option for testing. So it is not just mandatory vaccine, but there is testing at the workplace.
Councillor Hurley.
Again, you know, you read these policies and come back to biblical scripture on unequal weights and measures. I mean, it's insane what's going on. And I don't think that when I say that. We're in interesting times, folks. Yeah, you read this here, corporate policy, like the backbenchers and the administration don't have to do it, but the others do. And the swabs. It's just, again, I grew up in the independent meat business, so none of this surprises me. I can smell government overreach like nobody else. It's not going to end. I just don't know where this is going to go. It's going to get so complex, but we'll see where it goes. Anyways, we go forward. Thank you.
Okay, other comments or questions? I don't see any hands up, so I get to make a comment. So I have had discussions with Chief Adair and our Director of HR, Marion, with regards to a vaccination policy. So we're kind of, we talked about mandatory, we talked about seeing what the province comes up with, we talked about, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen all the details of the certificate vaccination passport that was released yesterday. I just haven't had time to read it all. So if we get a report back, then I guess we'll be on better footing to make a decision moving forward. That would be my comment. So if somebody wants to make a motion for a report back, that would be Councillor Kazenberg. Do I have a seconder? That would be Councillor Wilhelm. Last chance for comments or questions. Councillor Hurley.
I'll just say this again. Yeah, so I've read yesterday's release. Again, it's double standard. You know, we're going back in times to the Romans, if you would. It's so unpredictable. I don't know who's lobbying who or what. But yeah, I mean, if it's essential, you can go in. No testing, no passports. Religious services, yes. Then if it's a theater, no. Indoor dining, no. It's just, it's all over the map and it's confusing. And yeah, the social media world is in overload at this point. I just don't know how we're going to be doing something when the province doesn't even have it solid yet. And then we're sitting here asking for reports what the purpose is. We've got to remember whose money we're spending here, council, and we need to be efficient. The fact that the report came here today, again, the weights are clearly unequal and uneven. It's just, this is sinful to me, what I see. I'm going to be blunt. It's unfair and uneven. And this is a huge sin and it's gross. And I don't like this. And we don't know which way we're going. We don't know. The province isn't done yet. The goalposts are moving. They're on wheels at this point. I stay steadfast that we should just let the province. And I don't see the purpose of the report. I'm sorry, because we don't know.
Your hand up, Councillor Wright, or are you scratching your head?
No, I just might want to make a point of order. We started out talking about one thing, and then all at once we're way over the map on something different. Can we please finish Marion's? And we can put this other one at new business. If we want to do something after this, we can finish the report that's in front of us. Then if we want under new business, we can do another report. But I think we kind of got blurred here all at once. Sitting here,
we had the discussion on the report, and out of that came a second motion.
Right. So the second motion,
that motion, then we'll go back to the original motion.
Right.
Which hasn't been on the floor yet. So I do have a motion on the floor, and that was moved by Councillor Kazenberg and Councillor Wilhelm to have staff bring back a report on a vaccination policy for the corporate side and councillors. Last chance for comments or questions. Those in favor? That's carried. And I have a second motion that Perth County receives and approves the corporate vaccination policy report and policy for staff. And that is to do with EMS. Counselor Ait, are you moving that?
Yeah.
Okay, a seconder. Counselor McKenzie, did I see your hand up over there? Comments or questions on that? Those in favor of that motion? Then that's carried. Anything to add, Mike or Marion?
No, just with regards to the follow-up report, if it could be posted, I think the provincial government has indicated October 22nd for the implementation. So if it could be post that, it might just help us with clarity.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I think it's 22nd is the full implementation of the passport. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what I read yesterday, so
Okay, so we'll get that report.
probably November.
We'll have a meeting on the 7th and the 21st of October.
First and third.
First and 21st.
So the 21st, so perhaps we could get that report on the 21st of October. It'd be one day prior to the implementation of the vaccine passport.
Between that or the next one in November, just in case it's
Okay.
late, I would say.
Okay. Is council good with that? By the 21st to the 7th of November?
4th of November.
4th of November, is that the day? Okay. Anybody object to that? Not seeing any hands, so we'll aim for that time frame, Marion.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We are going to move on. Planning services. First, we have OPA 34. And who actually is going to present that? Sean's going to actually be the presenter. I know he wrote it, but. So we'll wait till we get Sean up on the screen here. Oh, there's Sean.
Good morning.
Okay, Sean, we're ready for 7.2.1, which is OPA 34.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, members of County Council. On Monday, June 21st, 2021, a statutory public meeting was held at a regularly scheduled North Perth Council meeting to discuss proposed amendments to the Lestool Ward Official Plan, which is the policy document that guides land use for Lestool. The proposed official plan amendment, also known as OPA 34, was initiated by the municipality and contains two separate and distinct sections, which are identified as item 1 and item 2 for the purpose of the staff report that you guys have received. Item 1 is intended to update existing transportation policies. The amendment will revise section 16 of the Lestool Ward official plan to update the road classification system by introducing the classification category collector roads. Collector roads are designed to collect and distribute traffic from local roads to arterial roads and to provide access to abutting properties. These roads tend to be shorter and carry lower volumes of traffic than arterial roads. Currently, in addition to introducing the collector road classification, OPA 34 will also reclassify and downgrade a portion of Wallace Avenue South between Main Street and line 84. Currently, this is an arterial road and it will be downgraded or reclassified, to a collector road. Now, this is also reflected through an update to Schedule B of the Lestool Ward official plan. Item 2 of the OPA 34 is intended to update policies pertaining to additional dwelling units or secondary dwelling units in all residential zones of the Lestool Ward official plan, and to update language of the Lestool Ward official plan text to remain consistent with the language of the provincial policy statement. In 2012, Bill 140, the Strong Communities Through Affordable Housing Act, authorized the use of second units in Ontario. More recently, in 2019, Bill 108, More Homes, More Choices Act, made amendments to the Planning Act to replace the legislation authorizing second units with additional residential units, or ARUs. Now, the main difference between second units and ARUs is the total number of units permitted on a lot. Further to Bill 108, the Planning Act now allows up to 2 ARUs on a single lot where there is a primary residential unit. The updated policy text, however, aligns the language with the policy direction introduced through Bill 108. However, it will not implement 2 additional units and is still only permitted to have just 1 additional unit. This is because the County of Perth official plan, the current County of Perth official plan, does not include these provisions at this time. Excuse me, additionally, as noted, this was presented to North Perth Council, with North Perth Council supporting and approving the proposed amendment to the Lestool Ward official plan. The proposed official plan amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the policies of the County of Perth official plan. Excuse me. As such, it is staff's recommendation that County Council approve the official plan amendment to the Lestool Ward official plan as initiated by the municipality. If you would like me to go through any of the text or associated schedule of the roads plan, I could most certainly do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Questions for Sean on Councillor Kassenberg?
Thank you, and thank you, planning staff, for your excellent work on this. It's certainly much appreciated, and that modernization, if you will, of matters both relating to road classifications and to additional dwelling units or residential units is quite important. I have a question that is perhaps a little bit broader, and that is, at this time, Law 108, as I understand it, the More Homes, More Choices Act, is in force in Ontario. And yet we do not allow the total of 3 dwelling units on a lot, on a residential lot. That is, as I think I heard you say, Mr. Yilmaz, as a function of it not being permitted in the Perth County official plan. Can you confirm that that is currently the case and that we are non-compliant with Ontario legislation that allows up to 3 units, dwelling units on a single residential lot?
Sean?
Yes, thank you. So, Councillor Kassenberg, you are correct in stating that the current official plan does not permit up to 3 units. It still only permits just the 1 additional unit and is referred to as a second dwelling unit. Now, there is a new official plan that is being prepared for County of Perth. And the policies within that document, in the draft document, would have the updated language and the updated policy text and context. So it is my understanding that the new official plan will be updated. However, in the short term, the existing official plan has not been updated at this time.
I see Sally on the screen. You want to make any comment to that, Sally?
Sean did a really good job of clarifying, I think. We all know that the current official plan for the county is out of date on several topics. And this amendment from North Perth is looking to further their conformity with the More Homes, More Choices Act and the regulation changes that came from it, and get them at least as far as the county OP, which also needs to go further. So when the new official plan is in place, it will be in alignment with the More Homes, More Choices Act, and it will allow an additional residential unit within the primary dwelling, as well as another, a third unit potentially in a accessory structure. And there are various other details and nuances to permitting additional residential units, not just in the official plan, but in zoning, that we really need to work towards in Perth County in order to not only align our policies with the province's direction, but to give our community and the homeowners and developers in the community more opportunity to address the housing shortages and the different price points and variety of homes that are needed by the people in Perth County.
Thanks, Sally. Any questions or comments from councillors here? Other Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, I want to congratulate the planning department. It's a good report. And my question, I guess, is going to just veer a little bit in a different direction. Certainly the need for housing in Perth County is a great need. My question is, when we talk about additional housing or additional residents, whether it be in a single detached, my concern maybe is more in row housing or townhouses. If we allow extra units there, the problem that I see is, what do we do with the vehicles that those people have that live on those units? We have a situation in West Perth, and I think most municipalities are the same. In the wintertime, we don't want vehicles parked on the street, so for snow removal. Driveways aren't that big, and in normal cases, in an average family, there'll be 2 or 3 cars that have to park in that driveway. If we add another unit, where are we going to park all these vehicles? And my question is, to round it off, is has the planning department given any thought to that aspect of this issue?
Through you, Warden Aitchison, I'll respond to that question. Parking is definitely in consideration when we look at zoning provisions for residential development, where we're looking at higher densities and the additional unit options. Likewise, drainage is something that we have to consider, because there are examples where a single detached home, for example, has been created through subdivision, and the lot is narrower perhaps in sort of the last 10 years than it was 15, 20 years ago. And then the homeowner would like to implement an additional unit in the basement and a side entrance perhaps for that unit. And then they are introducing a staircase and such to the side of the home. And then all of a sudden the original lot grading and drainage plan is potentially off kilter. So there really is importance to work with builders to help them understand the design features of a building and the features of a lot that do and don't work with this type of housing development. And with existing homes and existing lots, we will have to work through the zoning provisions to create sort of the parking spaces on a lot that are needed to support the change or conversion of an existing use to have an additional unit. And then in the development of new subdivisions, I know that staff in the various municipalities are talking to builders today who are coming in and developers who are coming in about the layout of lots, the design potentially of the buildings that will end up on the lots, and to consider at the stage of subdivision, what is an appropriate lot frontage and lot grading and drainage plan that can work better for those kinds of developments with additional units. So we are, through the official plan, the new official plan, working on policies to permit them we have some zoning provisions coming together already as well that we were working on through the summer that would get down to the lot level on how parking and drainage and things might work on lots with additional units. And we're looking to places throughout Ontario, throughout Canada that have done a lot of work in these areas with design guidelines and with intensification guidelines, because there are municipalities that have put resources and money into those tools. And so we do look to those and we do point people to them as well. I think there's opportunity for this department with the policies coming into place that we could partner with other groups around the municipality. There are initiatives already underway to have workshops and such with home builders and subdivision developers. And I think that work really needs to continue. The outreach portion of this is as important as policy if we want to see things on the ground that actually work.
That answer your question? Other questions? Councillor Kazenberg.
You just struck an interesting chord here, and I just want to pick up on this briefly to make sure I understand what happens after this should council elect to endorse this resolution. So in the case of North Perth, in the case of the Lestool Ward official plan, should we proceed at least with the housing related provisions, the additional dwelling unit provisions, will there be some zoning bylaw amendment work that's needed to sort of enable further with regards to that provision? That's my first sort of question. The second is, if I were to convert a space in my home into an apartment as an additional dwelling unit at this point, should that be permitted? And of course, since I'm in Atwood, it probably is at this point. Isn't it the only obligation that I have in sort of approaching government at this point is that I would be talking to the CBO? I don't think I'd need a planning involvement in a renovation to my current primary dwelling. Am I right?
Sally,
Yeah,
you
and
want to try that?
Yes, thank you. And also Sean, as the most intimately familiar with your zoning bylaw, will also probably have comments. You're correct. Like a building permit would be where you would end up. And you would be looking at the application for a building permit, and the building official would work with the planner to make sure that the zone provisions were being met. And with the changes in the development. And yes, our zoning bylaws probably do need some tweaking to really target, I think, provisions that will help with the development and the good development of additional residential units. And as I said, we do have some housekeeping amendments already underway for you. And we've been sort of writing them from the perspective of the new official plan. But perhaps there is need for an interim solution as well.
Sean, any additional comment?
Yes, thank you. So I guess more with regard to the current zoning bylaw does permit second dwelling units. And there are provisions that guide the development of it. So there is a parking requirement. There's certain size requirements. It can only be a maximum certain size, 1,300 square feet approximately. So at this point in time, the zoning bylaw with regard to second dwelling units is actually is updated with the existing current County of Perth official plan policies. And so the update to the Lestool Ward official plan really was something that should have happened a while ago. So this specific OPA will not trigger the need for a zoning bylaw amendment to ensure that this still works. But moving forward, to loosen up some of the language in the zoning bylaw as the Perth County policies are updated, then we would need to do that with the zoning bylaws.
Thank you. Further questions? Not seeing any. I have a motion. Perth County Council receives the Lestool Ward OPA 34 proposed official plan amendment to the Lestool Ward official plan, transportation and additional residential units amendments report, and that Perth County Council approve Lestool Ward official plan amendment number 34 affecting lands in the Lestool Ward. Moved by Councillor Kellum, second by Councillor Kazenberg. Last chance for comments or questions. Those in favor? That's carried. Okay, so moving on. And next, now we have planning project update, the Perth County Comprehensive Review. And I believe Sally, you'll be doing that.
Yes, thank you, Warden Aitchison and members of council. I'm going to share my screen. I have a couple slides. Is everybody able to see those slides?
Can now.
Okay. All right. So remembering June council meeting where council directed staff to work on an work with Watson and Associates to update the current comprehensive review that we have in place right now that is contributing to the update of the official plan. And also direction from council that we look closer at villages and hamlets for potential areas that are less developable, perhaps, that could potentially translate into additional lands to add to service settlement areas. So I wanted to bring back some information for council on these two topics. And you'll see in my report the recommendation about the update to the comprehensive review. And really what I wanted to do today was to give you a sense of cost, a sense of timing, and some insights into some potential strategy rather with respect to the work plans of Watson and Associates, as well as the work plans of the county, and how we might integrate those to get the most cost benefit from this update to the comprehensive review. And with me today, and not sure, I can't see everybody on the screen, but Jamie Cook from Watson and Associates is in attendance at the meeting today. So he could answer questions that you might have about the comprehensive review process or the work plan that they have put together for this update. And I think, like, generally speaking, we have all come to learn together, I think, more about growth planning over the last year. And West Perth, your workshop is the last one to occur, and its planning is actually underway now. So we'll be getting towards setting a date for you. But the concept that the comprehensive review really helps the official plan process, because it gives us the data, the analysis, and the calculations that show us when we are either in a surplus or in a deficiency with respect to designating enough land for employment and residential growth. And not only does it inform us and help us plan, but it is a requirement of the provincial policy statement that we do this work, that this homework is completed in order to justify designating new growth areas. And I think collectively, not just the folks in this council or in staff, but also in the community, I'm getting a sense that we do feel a bit of a drag on development today. I mean, we just went through an example with Sean of sort of outdated policies and outdated growth plans and growth areas is a real strong component of this new official plan, because that's the drag that we're feeling in some of the communities right now. And I think I fall into this a little bit, is that we put a lot of pressure on this new official plan to be like as perfect as possible, because we have been living through and working through an outdated official plan for some time. And nobody wants to get into that situation again, where we have a new official plan and we are sort of in that plan for a long time and it becomes stagnant. So I actually see the interest from council to update the comprehensive review as a real commitment to the concept that we've been talking about over the last while, which is continued monitoring of our needs and continued adjustment of our official plan as we go through the coming years, and that the plan itself does not become sort of stagnant or not keeping up with growth and the needs of the community. So that's why the recommendation is to sort of accept, I guess, the cost associated with the update to the comprehensive review. And then what I just want to bring you through in the next few minutes here is a sort of a strategy to apply to the work plan, because we really do want to get the best cost benefit from doing the work. So the Watson and Associate staff have identified for us that in the past summer, some of the projections from Stats Canada, like a sort of a quick update that they do each year, provided that the growth projections for population and employment are higher. And The census was conducted this year in 2021, and those results are expected, the 4-year review are expected in 2022, early in the year in February. And so given that population projections are an important component of the data that's collected, then it gives pause for us to consider the timing of the work that we want Watson's to do, given that February isn't that long from now. And there is work within the department that we have to do in order to also inform the third arrow there, which is the available land inventory. So if we work on the available land inventory over the next few months, then it will help inform the comprehensive review as well. And in fact, the census data and the available land inventory are pretty critical components. So if they are as up to date as possible when Watson starts to do their analysis, then it will be the best numbers that we can come up with at that point in time.
Okay, thanks, Sally.
There is a couple more points if you don't mind me going through them.
Go right ahead.
The other thing that's going on right now, of course, is we have some hiring underway in the department. We also are working on the OP text in this next month and a half, because that's an important component to get finished, to nail down those policies that we were, an example of which we were just talking about, and also the natural environment consultation piece. So next meeting, I would like to bring you that strategy that staff have been working on for the natural environment consultation. So keeping in mind that these are sort of 3 big tasks happening in the department right now, and we would like to get into those and then shift into the land inventory work for the comprehensive review. So I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but these are some of the things that are lacking in our official plan right now. And we really want to get these in place. So it's kind of the chicken and egg scenario all the time. We need these policies on the screen here to do better development today on the ground. And we don't necessarily want to delay the official plan anymore. I don't think any of us want that. But we also want the best up-to-date numbers. So how can we achieve both things? And that's where my strategy that I'm proposing today is coming from. So just to speak briefly about the request from council to look at the hamlets and villages, it is a fair amount of work to do that. Gathering the information is one thing, but perhaps more so to analyze and formulate some recommendations around those findings is something that will require a bit of time. And with the natural environment consultation, I am seeing work there as well. And so when I bring you that strategy next month, I would like to talk about resources for both of these projects, perhaps in a temporary form, but to get the right people and some additional people to do this work in a really timely manner for the completion of the OP and the update of the comprehensive review. And I think the work on the hamlets and villages, as well as the land inventory work, those are both directly inputted into the comprehensive review. So like the census work coming in February, perhaps doing this work throughout the winter and starting the comprehensive review just after that census release in February is the best cost benefit that we could achieve if to spend the money. I gather, and perhaps Jamie could comment, I gather that Watson and Associates are quite busy. So I would recommend, that's why the recommendation is coming today, that we actually get on their list. We sort of put the work on the books, so to speak, and approve the expense, if you will, and get that slotted for right after that release of census data in February. So this gives you an idea, this picture here, that right now staff is working on the new OP text, the natural environment piece. We could then, once those are implemented and shifting, we can start working on the land inventory work and the hamlets and villages. And the land inventory work, actually, we started about 3 weeks ago with some of the student help. So that is partially completed in the service settlement areas, but not in the hamlets and villages as yet. Looking into 2022, then we would hopefully have the new official plan in consultation and in front of the government, so in front of the province. It would get us so much closer to infusing the new policies into the development that's happening right now. And the update for Watson's would undertake to the comprehensive review could get started and get underway. We could be working on the zoning updates that fall from the policy updates in the official plan. And it also gives the lower tiers an opportunity to update and to work through their servicing plans that we are really needed to be in tune with the growth areas that we have identified and will continue to identify as we monitor growth and make adjustments. Then as 2022 concludes, the work that Watson's are proposing is about a 7-month project and does have a cost of just over $40,000. So it's going to take the bulk of looking from February and then forward 7 months. Towards the fall of 2022, we'd be receiving that information. And perhaps by that time, we would have a new official plan that is close to or receiving approval from the province. And then we could look at an amendment into 2023 and really demonstrate that commitment that we have to monitoring our growth and making change. I mean, the risk here, if you want to consider what is the risk, is that the update rather to the comprehensive review doesn't give us the growth that we anticipate it will, or show that there is deficiencies. But I think the reason we wanted to undertake it is because we all are in agreement that there is a good chance that it's going to show that we have more deficiencies than we perhaps even know today. But the other thing to take into consideration as well is that we do need to work towards intensification policies. And so that will be unfolding at the same time, and we will be able to consider those with the work of Watson's in our land needs. So what I'm proposing then is a timeline that Watson's begins after that February date. And then we would be bringing the fresh data to it in all fronts, not just the growth projections, but in the land availability and intensification potential. And that aligns better with the resources that we have currently to work on these things in-house, and potential to align it with some additional, perhaps temporary resources to do the natural environment consultation. And then we will have a new OP that is much closer to being in play, and a commitment to amend it with fresh data that is really timely, and we have come and arrived at that place in considering the cost benefit. So this is the strategy I wanted to bring you to show you why I'm recommending that we do go ahead with this cost, and that the timeline is relevant. So thank you for the time to go over that. Again, if you have questions for myself or Jamie, we would be happy to do that.
Okay, thanks, Sally. We can go back to full scale. Yeah, perfect. So I see Councillor Casper got his hand up.
Thank you. Sally, thank you very much for bringing forward this report, which obviously shows the strange conundrum of chicken and egg scenario that you're in. I'd rather not hear that much about chickens anymore, to be honest. North Perth's had its share in the last year or so, but let's just be blunt. I don't want to see the new official plan delayed any longer than is absolutely necessary. I think what you've said to us, I'm hoping what I understood, is that the collection of new data from the 2021 census, which can be leveraged by Watson as it becomes available in 2022, will not necessarily impede us from bringing a new official plan forward, having this council consider it appropriately, and moving it forward to the Government of Ontario. My question is, if Ontario approves a new official plan at some point in 2022, and we're there, and then we have this data slice and the implications of the data coming back to us from the comprehensive review, which requires amendment, are we actually allowed to amend our new OP right away, like within the first 2 years of its existence? Is there permission to go ahead and make changes? I thought there was some provision that said that official plan amendments are not permitted in the first 2 years of the release of a new official plan.
Yes, through you, Warden Aitchison, that's correct. A 2-year moratorium, if you want to call it that, is implicit in the Planning Act, and the local council can waive that. So this council would have the authority to allow amendments to their official plan, and we would set about that resolution and bylaw at the time that we have the official plan adopted. And the provincial policy statement requires that planning authorities appropriately plan for growth and that you are in keeping with the needs. So a new comprehensive review, or rather an updated comprehensive review that showed that there were further deficiencies, we would have some obligation to ensure that the land was designated to accommodate that growth. And we are required in our official plan to show a 25-year supply for employment and residential lands. We're also required to show a 3-year supply of lots in our subdivision work. And so there are standards, there are bars that we have to meet. And I mean, obviously our current official plan isn't. I think the province would be glad not only to see our new official plan sooner than later, but they would also be glad to see that we have an intention towards maintaining those requirements of a planning authority to keep up with our growth requirements. So I guess what I'm proposing today is that we get both. You know, we don't sacrifice one for the other. We continue to get this official plan off the ground. It's been a struggle for the community to work with it, and that we also get an update to the comprehensive review underway. Why can't Perth County have both of those things?
Other comments or questions? Councillor Wilhelm.
I guess, as we know and we see right today, that our official plan is basically a living document that, whether we like it or not, has changes all the time. And I'm very concerned that we are moving slowly at getting our official plan in place. And I certainly wouldn't like this Watson report, because it's obvious that we're not going to see that report in this term of council. And if we hang our hat on part of that report for the new official plan, that means that this term of council has been negligent in getting an official plan done. And this has been dragging on for years. And I would really like to see a timeline to get this official plan finished in this term of council. Like I say, maybe we're shooting for perfection, I don't know. And maybe we can achieve it, but I think we really need to get this official plan done and to the province in this term of council.
Councillor Hurley.
Well, yeah, no, thanks, Sally there. I mean, yeah, it's trying times. I mean, we're a year and a half into 2 weeks here of a pandemic. So of course, you know, we all want to have everything tomorrow. I think of all the families that are rejigging their lives almost daily at this point, and figure out which way to go. And as much as we'd like this done, including myself, we can't get pushing, we can't get ramming. Like I said, we're going to be 2 years into 2 weeks, folks, council. So I love the progress. Sally, you're doing what you can, but the natural heritage element is important, and we gotta do what we gotta do. We can get pushing, we can get rammy, but I don't want to see that, because look, we're in trying times, folks, and council, and I don't want to say it is what it is, but I don't want to harp on planning too hard here. I mean, we're all, Sally's got a home of youth. Like, I don't know how you do what you do, Sally. I applaud you. It's just, it's tough. It's very tough times. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Deputy Warden Agats.
I kind of agree with Daryl. We need to make sure that we do it properly the first time. And unfortunately, that's going to take more time than it should. I'm just curious. I know all of us and Sally and some of the planning department come in the middle of this. Why aren't the villages looked at the first time around? I'm not understanding why some of this information and that we had more up to date with the statistics wasn't used the first time around. Now we have to put out more money to add to it, but that none of us around this table, unfortunately, we're part of that what was being planned at the beginning. But I think we need to do it right too. I think the natural heritage piece is going to be a big component of this, bigger than I think everybody realizes, but I want the rest of it done right. I don't want it done and then we're trying to constantly amend it.
Other comments? Councillor Katzenberg, one last crack.
Yeah, sure. You know, I'm sympathetic to the fact that there are some pains that lie ahead, especially with the natural environment or natural heritage work that remains. I'll assert unequivocally, I want this new official plan sooner rather than later. It is at this point, there are a series of elements to the current OP that are impeding progress in growth and planning and development in North Perth. I have been asking for a few years whether we should make various amendments. You saw one today with regards to the Lestool ward. That one wasn't even on my horizon, but certainly we have a real need for the updates and the policies that are proposed, especially around housing and density and so forth. So for me, I understand the desire to sort of wait until we get it right, but I don't think we can wait. Like in the absence of that, you're going to see multiple OPA requests from North Perth so that we can get the current official plan doing some of the heavy lifting that is needed so that we can get on with housing and stuff. So I personally feel strongly that the approach that Sally has recommended seems right. I'm wary of amendment after amendment in the aftermath of the work of updating the comprehensive review, but I think we need some new policies sooner rather than later.
Councillor Deputy Warden Hagan.
So is it possible to do all the official plan except for the natural heritage piece and get that part through, and then we work on the natural heritage after, or does it all have to be together? Like, I know here in county, have they even passed theirs yet, the natural heritage part? I'm kind of lost track of where it all went, but I'm just wondering if we can do the rest of it and then we can address Todd's concerns and then bring the natural heritage piece in, work on it after, because I do believe it's going to be a huge component of this.
Through you, Warden Aitchison to Council, yes, the natural heritage study that was done, the purpose of that was to produce a systems approach to natural heritage evaluation, natural heritage acknowledgement, and that's a requirement of the PPS. It's similar to the additional residential unit policies. It's one of the things in our official plan that did not keep up with provincial direction. And so when we submit our official plan for approval, we're going to have to show a systems approach to natural environment protection and natural environment acknowledgement. So the study was done to that end. And as I said, next month, I will bring that consultation strategy that I hope it's certainly been designed in order to work through that process with landowners and make sure that in large part, we can come to compromise and agreement. And in Huron County, they have a 2-tier official plan. They have an official plan for the county that says we will do a systems approach. And then they have individual official plans for each lower tier where they are adopting the natural heritage mapping on a township by township basis. And they are going through on the township basis what it's similar to what I will propose to you next month for the county that we do on a county basis in terms of direct mailings and consultations and one-on-one work with landowners and a program that will allow people to update the mapping and ground truth the mapping on an ongoing as requested basis. So I think it's probably wise to look at that consultation strategy together and then make some decisions about resources and such. But certainly what I have been working on and the team has been working on is bringing about solutions and plans that will get us to an official plan within your term.
Okay, any more questions or comments? I've got a motion here I'm going to read. We'll see where it goes. Perth County Council receives the planning projects to update the Perth County Comprehensive Review 2020 and investigate vacant lands in villages and hamlets for potential redistribution report, and that council procure Watson and Associates Economics Limited at a cost of $40,600 through single source vendor to undertake an update to the comprehensive review for Perth County 2020, commencing upon the release of the 2021 Census by Statistics Canada in February of 2022, and to be coordinated with an updated available land inventory provided to Watson and Associates by the Planning Department. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kasenberg. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McKenzie. Any more questions or comments? Those in favor of that motion? That's unanimous. Almost. Okay, that's carried. Okay, we're gonna move on. Actually, no, we're gonna stop. We're gonna take a 5 to 7 minute break. Thanks, Sally. Sally gone? Yes. We're gonna take a 5 to 7 minute break, stretch your legs.
You're good to go here, you're good to go there, you're good to push it.
We're live streaming again there, Sean.
Good.
I got a couple here with their screens turned off. There's one back. We need, there's another one back, and we need Councillor Matt Duncan.
Yeah, he's probably out getting a coon.
And there he is.
Yeah, he's back.
Welcome back, Matt. Okay, we're gonna move on. Economic development. And first on the thing is the PC Connect July update. So if we can get Maggie, and assuming Meredith's gonna come on as well. Morning, Maggie.
Good morning, everyone.
We're ready for your report.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So through the warden, as always, I'd just like to provide a very brief update report for everyone regarding PC Connect. Unfortunately, due to the timing of our ridership. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh, awesome, sorry. Just due to our reporting deadlines and the timing of our ridership data, the report before you only provides an update on July operations. However, it does not include any August ridership. So we do plan to return to our regular reporting schedule in order to enable the most update information possible, which is the second meeting of each month. So we plan to move back to that schedule in October. So that being said, I did receive our August ridership data yesterday, so I'll certainly speak to it. So in August, our PC Connect service serviced 81 rides on Route A and 44 on Route B for a total of 125 rides. So from November 2020 to August 31st, 2021, PC Connect has serviced a total of 970 rides, with 750 on Route A and 220 on Route B. So with the gradual decrease in COVID-19 restrictions and the increase in marketing activity in July, PC Connect ridership has shown an average growth trend of 25% month over month, which is certainly optimistic for the service. So as shared last council meeting, we have executed a number of marketing tactics that form a multimedia campaign, which includes some tactics such as print, radio, and social media ads. So since marketing efforts have commenced, we've reached 40,000 viewers in just 1 month of paid social media ads. Our PC Connect call center volume has increased by 100%, and we've seen an 86% increase in PC Connect website traffic. So in addition to our marketing and advertising, we're also focusing our efforts on community outreach and really promoting PC Connect to different service and social groups, employers, and school boards throughout the county and surrounding areas. So to date, we have educated a variety of residents about PC Connect through presentations to organizations such as Conestoga Career Center, Employ, Will Employment Connections, Avon Maitland District School Board, as well as the Stratford Rotary Club. So community outreach is ongoing, and it certainly continues to be a top priority for the team in order to really spread the word about PC Connect and in turn grow our ridership. So with that, that is my very brief update for you. The report is before you, and I welcome any questions that council may have.
Thanks, Maggie. Questions for Maggie on her report? Not seeing any. I have a motion. Perth County receives the PC Connect July update report. Moved by Councillor Callum, second by Councillor McDermott. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to PC Connect again, but the additional community transportation funding. And that's Maggie, and we have Meredith on the screen there.
Good morning, everybody. We have some good news, but it also comes with some challenges. The Community Transportation Grant Program that was originally announced in 2017 project was planned for a 5-year pilot period with an end date of March 2023. Due to delays in receiving details on service agreements and the funding program and the onset of the global pandemic, our service was not launched until November 2020. leaving us just under 2.5 years for the pilot program. This year in June, we received information. We were notified that the CT grant program would be extended for an additional 2 fiscal years until 2025, and that we were eligible to receive an additional $859,000 for the extension period only. In order to launch the service, the county entered into a number of agreements. The terms relevant to the extension are outlined below. So there was a provision of transit service agreement. That's the agreements between the county and our 4 member municipalities to authorizing us to operate the intercommunity transit within each community. The local partnership agreement, that is the agreement that's between the county, the town of St. Mary's, and the city of Stratford to work together to deliver the intercommunity service with the expiry of August 31st, 2023. And then the service agreement between the county and Voyago outlining the terms of service, and the current expiry of that is also August 31st, 2023. The original project and the agreements were developed to allow PC Connect to operate as long as the funding permitted, with options to terminate earlier than March 31st, 2023. Funding for years 6 and 7, which cannot be brought forward to meet the shortfall for years 1 through 5. It's important that we ensure the project expenses do not exceed the funding and the revenues so that there is no disruption in service. PC Connect service assumed revenue based on a 10% month-over-month increase in ridership. Due to the pandemic, ridership has been closer to 2.5% of the full capacity. Gradual decrease in the pandemic restrictions, decreased rider hesitancy, increased customer awareness, and marketing efforts. The ridership growth trend is expected to grow. If the 10% ridership forecast is not soon realized, the budget will have to be revised to reflect projections of a smaller increase with the reduction of spending in order to break even for years 1 through 5. In order to make a more cautious approach with lower expectations for ridership levels, a 2.5 month-over-month ridership growth rate has been used to calculate year 6 and 7. With decreased per year community transit funding during the extension period, a 2.5% growth rate would result of us operating in a deficit of $291,000 in year 7. In advance of the amended transfer payment agreement from the province based on the current financial standings of the project, additional funding for year 6 and 7, and the additional funding for year 6 and 7, the following options are presented here today for you. Option 1, avoid a deficit and operate the PC Connect service until the provincial funding is exhausted, which is forecasted for mid-year 7. Option 2 is seek partner and community contributions to fully fund the PC Connect service for year 7. So that would be going to our 4 member municipalities, the town of St. Mary's, the city of Stratford, our employment agencies, the school boards, and asking for them to help support and fund the shortfall of the $291,000. And then option 3 is we can always decline the additional provincial funding offered and terminate the PC Connect as originally planned on March 31st, 2023. We are recommending that you choose option 1 to continue to operate the PC Connect program until the provincial funding is exhausted, with the forecasted of mid-year 7. This will help us take the necessary time to collect ridership data, improve capacity, and work with our community partners to ensure additional funding, which hopefully can help us stretch out the year 7 to its full capacity. So Maggie and I are here today. If you guys have any questions on the staff report and the additional funding, and we're happy to help.
Okay, questions for either Meredith or Maggie, and we'll start with Councillor Hurlick.
No, thank you. This is where a lot of us figured this would end up. It's interesting times again. Of course, the pandemic has thrown a few curves, as it does to everything, as I find myself right now trying to rejig here with my kids and family. No, there's going to be a lot of downloads coming in the next years, folks. Council, I strongly believe, and we need to remember who we're working for and who we're supporting. It's no secret the Connect system is a beast of higher governing bodies around the world. United Nations, that kind of work. That's where this stuff is all orchestrated, pushed down through. How is it going to play out? We got to make sure we keep growth up, or to just downloading all this stuff. I don't see it. It's tough times. I don't know. Option 1 is okay. I'm more for option 3. we'll leave for some discussion here. Thank you.
Councillor Katzenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just a quick question of the team. With regards to only operating at this point, it seems your projection suggests about a half a year or so into year 7. Does that in any way violate potential agreements we might have with the province for how the funding is to be used for the full financial year?
So this, I'm going to have to defer to Corey. I think Corey's on the line waiting. He's our financial guru with the funding programs. So Corey, if you could take over.
We're going to have to add Corey here temporarily. While we're waiting for Corey, quick question. So it's fairly difficult to come up with projections as far as ridership with what's gone on over the last year and a bit. I have had a lot of comments made to me in the last 3 months, actually, who are now moving more about, and one of them was from people going from St. Mary's to Stratford, and they, for some reason, didn't even realize this service existed until about 2 months ago. And they can't believe how great it is. So I've read a lot of positive comments and got a lot of positive comments made to me in the last 2-3 months, now that people are moving around a little bit more. But I know it's hard to get the projections because we really don't know. But there's a chance that year 7, you may not have the deficit you think you do, right?
Absolutely. And Maggie has a fairly aggressive, as the restrictions are loosening, Maggie has quite an aggressive marketing plan to target co-op teachers at the school and the school board for the SHSM program, as well as our employment agencies across Stratford and Perth County and St. Mary's. So I am confident that the ridership is going to grow as provincial restrictions loosen. I just, it's very hard and very difficult to track at this time.
Corey, how are you this morning?
Good yourself, Warden?
Did you happen to hear the question of regards to year 7 and whatnot?
Yes. So my understanding of that is then it would come to council more quickly than anticipated on when we are going to decide on the future of this, the program itself. So for the province is that we actually spend the money and use it for eligible costs. We've just anticipated that our eligible costs are going to get us to mid-year of year 7 instead of the March of the year 7 endpoint. So for that purpose, council is going to have to make a decision earlier than anticipated to the end of year 7. So again, it's still money that we are spending on eligible costs, and how we get there is essentially put in front of you right now from the team from economic development. So in the end is that, yes, we're not held to go to the end of that year. It'll be the decision of council at that time.
Thanks, Corey. Other questions? Comments? Councillor Wilhelm.
I like option 1, and I'd like to add that our staff, who I know are very good at fundraising and getting people to contribute to assist in the operation if necessary for the funding. Unfortunately, we couldn't have started this at a worse time, and I congratulate that it is 2 staff that is still operating and we're seeing increases. So I'm optimistic that we will see improvements in ridership and dollars, and hopefully by year 7, we won't be worried about a $291,000 deficit. So I would like to see us continue, march on and be optimistic. You're going to increase ridership and revenue.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Hurley?
No, it's definitely interesting times for sure. I'm still skeptic. That being said, I do applaud Maggie and the crew. You have done an amazing job of pushing, and I see it popping around on social media. You're doing what you can. I'm not going to take that from you. And thank you.
Anyone else? Not seeing anything. I have a motion here. Perth County Council receives this PC Connect Update Additional Community Transportation Funding Report. And Perth County Council approves option 1 to operate the PC Connect service until the provincial funding is exhausted. And the Perth County Council authorized the warden and clerk to execute the amended transfer payment agreement. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm. Do I have a seconder? That would be Councillor Kasenberg. Last chance for comments or questions. Seeing no hands, those in favor? That's approved unanimously, Ashley. Thank you very much. And next we have modifications to work plan. And we got Meredith there still.
Then we're going to pull up Justin as well.
Coming on too.
Yes. I can start as he gets connected. So as you all know, economic development has stayed very connected with our business community throughout this entire pandemic. The early stages, we were doing online surveys to assess the impacts on our business community of what COVID and the long-term shutdowns and disruption were going to create. In the summer of 2020, as restrictions loosened, staff were able to participate in business association meetings again, economic development advisory committee meetings. They were able to do a telephone calling program, as well as some business outreach. As we're entering the new normal, economic development staff are recommending that the originally planned community improvement development approved project that was approved for the 2021 budget be modified to a triage business retention and expansion exercise, surveying 200 businesses, a minimum of 50 businesses in each one of our member municipalities. By shifting this project to focus on business retention and expansion, economic development staff will have the better understanding of the relevant issues that our business communities are facing as a result of the pandemic and better position ourselves when programming and making priorities for 2021 and the development of our community improvement plan. This will help guide staff to make better decisions and that are evidence-based, and the ability to identify potential opportunities, challenges, closures, expansions, or downsizing, and make the appropriate changes to our 2021 work plan. And also setting the stage for our community improvement plan in 2021. Staff are recommending that we utilize a specialized market research consultant to complete the first phase of the project. Utilizing the consultant will help expedite the survey process and ensure that we have statistically sound data. MDB Insight is an economic development consulting firm that provides this unique product within the marketplace that is called their Triage BRNE platform. The Triage BRNE provides benefit for both understanding the business community as well as our individual business needs. The fast implementation can be done in as little as 3 to 4 weeks, and it will provide timely insights on the business community and allow staff to follow up personally and do personal outreach to the high priority or triage businesses from within the sample. This project scope is 2 phases. One, we're going to survey 200 businesses, a minimum of 50 businesses in each community. We're going to add 5 to 6 additional questions that are pertaining specifically to the business interests and priorities of community improvement plan. They're going to develop an action plan that economic development can add to our work plan. And then during phase 2, economic development and tourism staff will conduct follow-up interviews to high priority businesses that are identified through the telephone survey. And then closing out the project and setting the stage for our 2022 budget, 2022 work plan. The BRNE study will be then turned into a report and a project plan for the development of our community improvement plan. So Justin and I are here. So there's no financial impacts on the net levy requested for the 2021 approved budget. We're just shifting the community improvement plan development to a triage business retention expansion program under our special budget or special projects line item. So Justin and I are here to answer any questions that you guys should have on this program.
Okay, questions for Maggie or Meredith or Justin? Councillor Kassenberg?
Thank you. Meredith, welcome back.
Happy to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a first place. And Justin, good to see you today. I have always had concern about sole or single source contracting, and this matter is no different. I'm concerned about the fact that you know, we don't fully understand the nuances of the market with regards to what's available and why this solution was picked and recommended for single sourcing. So I'm expressing concern about that. I think that we need to be careful about our doings around business procurement in public. And I get the general gist, but I'll be happy to hear from you more about that. I think when we come to single sourcing, it's important to ask at least one question, which is, do any of the staff of the County of Perth have personal or business relationships with this firm that have not been disclosed to this point?
Maggie or Justin, response?
So the first part of your question, I guess, we are not sold on single sourcing. One of the main reasons is it is a unique product, is that we would like to expedite the process and jump on this immediately so we can start our plans for 2022. Now, Justin was an employee with MDB Insights prior to taking on my maternity leave. There's no financial incentives for him to be for us to be recommending this product, but we are happy and are willing to take this to market and go to RFP and get other quotes.
Other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. Morning, Justin. Oh, Councillor Kassenberg, you got another one?
I mean, I think that it would be prudent for us to suggest that this should be brought to market, to be honest. That's, you know, I'm expressing my opinion here about this, but I think that we might as well explore the market and find out what's available. I appreciate the sensitivities around time and the concern to get on with it, but there are some indicators now that you've just mentioned, which to me suggest that the market should be sounded.
Councillor Agats, Deputy Warden Agats, keep messing up there today.
I do trust what the economic development team is doing. They know their stuff. They know who's out there to get, and I hear what Todd's saying, but that's going to just slow everything down. We're already in September, right? 2022 is going to be here long before we know it. So if they want a single source, they know the companies that are out there. I trust that they are doing the right thing.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Wilhelm?
I may have missed, but what is the estimated value of this contract?
Justin, I'm going to have to pass that over to you. You've got the numbers on the file there.
Sure. Yeah, so it is under the $25,000 threshold for mandating open market RFP process. So we could solicit 3 other quotes from firms who offer similar products, although we don't really know of any that do offer a similar product in the marketplace, but it's definitely under the $25,000 threshold for requirement for an RFP.
Does that answer your question?
No.
You want to know the number?
I would like to know, there's a big difference between 10 and 25,000.
So I don't have the exact number in front of me through your worship, but it was around 18 or 19,000, I believe.
Thank you. Other
I'm just
comments?
gonna pull it up. I'll pull it up.
Councillor McKenzie's got his hand up here.
Just similar to the questions that have been asked, have we at the county had any past experience with this firm or the consultants?
I think from what I heard up there, the only past experience was that one time Justin worked for him.
Yeah, but we haven't.
We haven't used them. Meredith, you want to answer that?
Yes, through you, Warden, to Councillor Mackenzie. We have used MDB Insights. They actually, when I first started my very first project, they developed our foreign direct investment program and did all of the background knowledge, and they did an excellent job. Very satisfactory.
Oh, that answers that. I was unaware of that. Other comments or questions? I only got one quick question. We've had comments both ways here. If you were to send this out to market, you wouldn't be working on this for at least 2 months, maybe longer?
Probably yes.
Well, what was that now?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a couple of months to get the RFP written up, conduct interviews and do evaluations and then hire the company. Yes, I have the price too for Councillor Wilhelm. So the triage BRNE is $16,810.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I've got a motion in front of me. I'm going to read it, see where it goes. Perth County Council receives the modifications to work plan report, and Perth County Council approves the shifting of economic development and tourism work plan from a community improvement plan to develop a triage business retention and expansion program under special projects, and Perth County Council authorized single sourcing for this project to MDB Insight. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McDermott, seconded by Councillor or Deputy Warden Nagans. Any more comments or questions? Those in favor? Okay, I got to do some hand counting. 2, 4, 6, that's passed. That's more than approved. Just that all the hands weren't going up right away, so I got to do some hand counting. Okay, no, we're good. That's more than approved. Thank you, Meredith and Justin. Keep up the good work. Okay, we're moving on to corporate services. And first is the forestry tree inspector's report. Sean or Tyler?
I'll take that one. So through the warden, before council is the July 2021 forestry inspector's report prepared by Marvin Smith. Throughout July, Marvin conducted 6 total inspections, 3 inspections as a response to requests from landowners, 1 as a response to a complaint, and then 2 inspections as a response to submission of NOI. If there's any questions, please feel free to pass them on to myself and I will ensure that Marvin gets them.
Questions of the tree report? Not seeing any. I have a motion. County Council receives the July 2021 Forestry Inspectors Report for information. Moved by Councillor Mackenzie, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Those in favor? It's carried. Moving on, forestry conservation bylaw, and this has got Sean and Tyler. Which one's doing that? That would be Sean.
I'll let Sean take that one.
Thank you, Warden. Through you and to the council, good morning and thank you for the opportunity to speak today on this report. The report is before council, but I did want to highlight a few things here today. The changes were developed in collaboration with staff and the county prosecutor and Marvin Smith, bylaw enforcement officer. And they all consist of fairly minor housekeeping items that were needed to more accurately reflect current administration of the forestry program and support business continuity. And a few others were implemented to create some flexibility necessary for administrative efficiency. It's also important to note that the changes being recommended do not impact the bylaw in a substantive way in regards to overall form, intent, and content. The processes for landowners, county staff, logging contractors are not impacted and are all staying the same. The need to review the bylaw, however, stemmed from moving administration of the forestry program from the planning division to legislative services because the bylaw contained a number of references specific to planning services and planning staff. And so these were updated to more general references to the county or the bylaw enforcement officer, building in flexibility to accommodate any future organizational changes in relation to the forestry program. Some of the definitions and their related sections within the bylaw were also updated to be more precise. For example, the definition of a single lane driveway now includes a maximum width that is consistent with other county policies. And the new bylaw also includes the content of the temporary ash tree amendment passed by council in 2019. And this was just to streamline access to the content of the bylaw by consolidating the amendment and the bylaw together into one document. And the most substantial change to the content of the bylaw is likely in section 6, which details the process required to submit a notice of intent. The purpose of this was to provide sufficient information regarding the process to allow for the actual removal of the notice of intent form, or Schedule B, from the bylaw. This is consistent with other municipalities, and the advantage of removing the actual form from the bylaw is to build in flexibility to make minor administrative updates to the form without having to bring an amendment to council. So the bylaw does dictate what content needs to be included in the form, but if we need to say change an email address for contact information, we would need to bring a bylaw amendment to council if we needed to update that, if it was the form itself was part of the bylaw. So the changes to section 6 give staff the flexibility to make those necessary administrative updates way more efficiently. And I also want to emphasize that all of the recommended changes to section 6 reflect the notice of intent process as it is practiced. It will not require any changes to how landowners or logging contractors submit NOIs or coordinate inspections. For instance, there is language now that states that the landowner or logging contractor must request the form from the county. We aren't interpreting that as to need any formal request process. A request can be as simple as clicking on the link to the website, sending us an email, just getting the form the same way that people have always been getting the form. But we put that language in there just to make sure that whoever is submitting a notice of intent to the county is just using the correct form. So these changes were necessary to provide enough specific information to allow for the removal of Schedule B from the bylaw to enhance administrative efficiency. And that's everything I wanted to highlight here today. I'm happy to take any questions now.
Okay, questions for Sean with regards to this report? Don't see any hands up. I have a motion here. Perth County Council receives the Forestry Conservation Bylaw Amendment Report, and that Perth County Council adopt bylaw number 3836-2021 and repeal bylaw number 3557-2016 and bylaw number 3737-2019. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor Duncan. Last chance for comments or questions. Those in favor? It's carried. Okay, we're moving on. And we are at request for municipal approval for in-person provincial offenses, and we have to get. What's that? Yeah, we need Linda to come up on the screen here. And there she is.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, Council. I'm at home and I don't have a camera here.
Okay, you're up, Linda. We're ready to go on in-person provincial offenses appearances.
Well, earlier in August, on the 13th, we received good news from the province, and that's where the County of Perth Provincial Offences has met all the criteria to move towards in-person court appearances. Now, just to be clear, that does not mean that we're returning to everyone showing up at the courthouse in person. The province has made a number of legislative changes that expand and continue the use of remote trials, remote non-trial matters, so pleas and adjournments and things like that. Only those people who specifically identify to the court that they don't have access to the technology will proceed to a trial in person. It has to be like approved by the Justice of the Peace. But this approval would also put us on the road to schedule ex parte trials. Now, those are trials where people have ignored the summons. They refuse to come to court. They will not honor what they're supposed to do. Eventually, what happens under the Provincial Offences Act is a trial is conducted in their absence. And as long as the prosecutor can prove the charge, then the conviction is registered and we move on. We have a number of these cases, and this would put us in a position where we can start clearing them out. Right, and the reason that is that the province has stated clearly that we can't proceed to ex parte trials until such time as we are able to provide in-person appearances. So this is why I'm seeking council's approval so that I can move on and notify all the agencies that I need to notify that we are in a place where we can offer in-person appearances. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Questions for Linda, Councillor Kasenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you, Linda. Very promising. I have actually a technical question, which I'm hoping that you have some insight into. I noticed that the province's letter or document to us indicates that there will be heating, ventilation, and air conditioning data monitoring and reporting. And I'd like to know what that involves.
Thank you. Through the warden, because the province has Superior Court and motions courtrooms in this building, they already have monitoring systems in place. Facility staff would be more aware of what's involved in the monitoring, but with discussions with the Recovery Secretariat, we do not separately need to have monitoring in place when the building is monitored for Superior and motions and family court.
Todd's nodding his head, so I think that answers his question.
Thank you.
Other questions? I don't see any hands. I have a motion. Perth County Council receives a request for municipal approval for in-person provincial offenses court appearances report, and the Perth County Council grant municipal approval for the Perth County Provincial Offences Court to resume in-person appearances. Do I have a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott over there. Last chance for questions. Those in favor? Oh, Councillor Deputy Warden Higgs, you got a question?
I do. If all these regulations and rules go through about everybody being vaccinated, what happens if some of these people aren't fully vaccinated to come into our buildings? Will that be allowed?
I imagine, yes, through the warden, I imagine it will be a problem. The screeners stay in place, and I don't really anticipate that many people will be coming in person. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. I don't know if we would be included because court is like a meeting. So perhaps people will need to provide proof of vaccination, but that's something that's way above my level of authority to really speak to. I'm sorry.
Apparently, we've had some exemptions before by the province, and I think this is basically something that's going to be decided by the province in all likelihood.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
And Annette's shaking her head up and down, and I think she's agreeing with me.
Yes.
Okay, now the question, we'll get a mover and a seconder. Any other questions? Those in favor? Carried. Linda, we have the MSSC report.
Yes, here I go again. We continue to have all our court appearances by Zoom. They're going quite well. We had a little bit of a technical problem yesterday, I understand, but staff are dealing with this. Our dockets are full. We have to be able to think on our feet. There's all sorts of electronic document filing things in place. Some just the piece come in person, some just the piece that preside remotely, and we have to be able to adapt to whichever appearance method they choose. And now with the approval that you've given me on my last report, we can move forward with those ex parte trial backlogs that we've been staring at for quite a while now. We do continue to encourage the use of telephone, online payments, remote filing of requests for early resolutions, and legislation has been changed that notices of intention to appear for trial can be filed remotely. They previously had to be filed in person. So there aren't a lot of people coming in to see us. An awful lot of people use the online payment system, and a lot of people call us. If I go on to page 2 to my tables of numbers, see that it looks like the fine revenue, the charges filed, they're returning to historic levels. Not right there, but it's actually better than I expected for this year. I don't really have anything else to tell you, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Linda on this report? Not seeing any hands. I have a motion that Perth County Council receive the MSSC report. Whoops. For submission to the MSSC meeting of September 16th, 2021. Moved by Deputy Warden Nagus, second by Councillor Ike. Those in favor? Carried. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on, and we are doing Perth Archives. And is Betty Jo coming on?
There she is.
Oh, there she is.
Thank you, Warden. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to, sorry, remember the mic, forgot the video. So what you have in front of you today is the Archives report for this quarter. It's an update on how staff have been providing in-person services and public outreach to date in 2021. So like many other municipal archives, Stratford Perth reopened for in-person research visits in July, after mainly providing virtual access to collections since the end of December 2020. Though there was a brief period in the spring where we were allowed to let people back into the building again. Researchers book appointments so that we can ensure physical distancing in the reading room, and so that the records that they are most likely to want to use are ready and waiting for them when they arrive. Staff and researchers certainly seem to find this approach to be an efficient use of their time, and other archives are finding the same. At the same time, virtual access to collections and reference advice from staff over the phone and through email is increasingly popular. So as of today, there is a 50% increase in what we call queries this year over 2019 numbers. Some of our current public outreach projects are also described in the report, and I'd like to thank both Perth County IT and communications staff for their support of a community-led, community volunteer-led project to create a series of short videos about the War Memorial in Stratford that commemorates, among others, all those who were killed in World War I rather, who were from Stratford, Downey, Ellis, and Northeast Hope townships. And Archives weekly newspaper articles seem to be appreciated by local residents, like the person who is quoted in the report, who recently told us to keep up the good work. So that was very encouraging and much appreciated feedback for staff here. Thank you for your time this morning, and Warden, through you, I'd be happy to hear any comments or respond to questions about Archives operations.
Thanks, Betty Jo. Okay, questions for Betty Jo on her report. Councillor Hurley.
I just want to thank you there for that update, and it's unique. I always admire everything that goes on over there. And it's nice to see the involvement you're doing there, and the respect for our fallen men and women who serve this country. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Kasenberg.
Sorry, I'm apparently having a busy morning. Mr. Warden, there's an interesting challenge in this report for you, perhaps. It might be fascinating to have 100 years later, a fancy dress skating carnival that would be sponsored by the county and maybe by the warden as an event to draw Perth County together. Just saw that in the report, made me smile, thought of you and the potential for an interesting event.
Well, thanks, Councillor Kassenberg. I haven't had my skates on for 4 years. Not sure I want to put them on unless I got a hockey stick in my hand. I might have to learn to re-skate. That's something we can discuss in the future potentially. Sure. Other questions or comments? Okay, I have a motion. Perth County Council received the MSSC report for Stratford Perth Archives report, and that council approved the report for submission to the MSSC meeting of September 16th, 2021. Moved by Councillor McDermott, seconded by Councillor Hurley. Those in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving on. Mike Adair, Chief of Paramedic Services, has joined us and he's going to give his reports.
All right, great, good to go. Through the warden, thank you. So we have 2 reports from Paramedic Services today. I know that we've kind of had 3, but 2 more reports. One is the MSSC report, and that's the first one I'll provide you with some highlights on, opportunity for questions, and then after that, we'll move into this year's vehicle purchase, and we'll go through that. So with the MSSC report, this is a general update for the Municipal Shared Service Committee that will be going forward later this month that you'll approve to purchase that committee. We start off just discussing a little bit about the increase in calls. We've seen a 10% increase in calls, not since the beginning of the year, but over the past 3 months, which is similar trends that are happening in many services across Ontario. And I've mentioned this before, we would only suspect that that may be related to use of ambulance services since the pandemic has started. We saw a dip in calls, and so now we're seeing that things are kind of going back to normal and with the normal trajectory that we've experienced in the past. Directive number 6 we spoke about earlier, but I do mention that in this report for the Shared Services Committee, so they are aware of it, which is of course the vaccine policy. And as we all know in this room today, just mentioning that paramedics will be subject to the PanBio antigen testing if they are choosing not to be vaccinated. And then we go on to next one is the logistics and support. More on this in the next report that we're bringing forward, but we do mention a little bit about the purchase of 2 ambulances pending on the results of this meeting. And then we go into mobile integrated health and just reassurances that we're continuing to move forward. On mobile integrated health, I will bring a further update in terms of statistics and where we're at for this particular council in the future. Modernization program funding. So this is an important one that Oxford brought forward a request to receive or an application to the government or to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for modernization funding. And we're recipients of 2 streams. And the first stream was led by Oxford, and they are leading a review and in partnership with us and also with Elgin County. And that review is to look at efficiencies in areas of deployment, in areas of shared potential to look at shared resources such as physical vehicles, training, those types of items. And so we just are actually finishing the evaluations of the RFP that has been submitted at the end of this week, and we'll be selecting who we're going with in terms of running that review, and that should happen sometime within the next 2 weeks. So that's where we're at with the municipal or with the modernization program funding. This will also provide an opportunity for us to, you'll see in the report, like I said, look at vehicles, look at the equipment, look at operational software, maintenance, and all those types of things. And also would look at the potential for a seamless deployment plan, so that if an ambulance goes across the border, what does that look like? How do we manage those types of situations? What we're not looking at is the governance models. The governance models are out of scope for this review, but the actual how we can work together and be more efficient is within this review. The second part of that is the second part of the modernization funding is that we were, honored to be recipients of almost $75,000 worth of funding to go towards our CAD-Link project, which was part of this year's business plan, and that's enabling ambulances to be connected directly with our dispatch center and providing paramedics with real-time information as the call information comes in. So that's a system enhancement, and that's the direction Ontario is going. And seeing this, potential for funding from the province, we put an application in, and we're very pleased that it was approved, and that part of our work plan will be funded through the province. And then the second part of that modernization was we did put an application through for some funds to help with the mobile integrated health team for patient care monitoring or some at-home solutions that we could add to that program. So we're looking at how we might be able to implement that, because we were a recipient of $15,000 worth of funding for that program. Those programs that are operational, I'll call them, the ones that we're using for the CAD-Link, and that will start in October, and then they'll finish in 2022, and we're required to put a report back to the province on how the program went and what the results of that program were. So moving on to labor relations, this fall we'll be commencing negotiations with our QP union. So that's up and coming, QP 4514, which represents our paramedics. Then our tiered response, I just want to mention about tiered response as well, because once a cycle of council, we need to review and have a look at our tier response agreements across the county with our system partners. So I will be bringing a report forward this fall to this council, as it is the third year. And we will be taking a look at the tiered response agreements and making recommendations on how we're going to continue to move forward with tiered response in our communities. And of course, tiered response is for, work with our local fire services as well, in terms of what types of calls they will be responding to support citizens and persons visiting our communities. So that is the end of the MSSC report, and I certainly am happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mike with regards to the report for MSSC? Councillor Wilhelm.
I don't have any questions. I like to see this modernization program funding. The only thing I would like to see was tied in with Huron County. We do quite a bit with Huron County as far as health unit, etc. And so I would like to see how we could improve some efficiencies perhaps with them. But the government's paying, and I understand why the three partners are included.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, and actually that was something that Osher brought forward to start with, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, other questions? Don't see any. Seeing a motion, Perth County Council receives the MSSC Paramedic Services Update June Update Report for information, and that Perth County Council approved the distribution of the MSSC Paramedic Services Update June Report for the MSSC meeting on September 16th, 2021. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, seconded by Deputy Warden Agus. Those in favor? It's carried. Moving on, Mike.
Thank you. Through the warning again, the next report that we have here before you is for the purchase of 2021 and 2022 at this point ambulances. So as part of our fleet replacement cycle, we replace ambulances after 7 years of service, and usually around 250,000 or 250 to 275,000 kilometers. For this year, part of the capital program and that was approved previously earlier this year was to replace 1 ambulance. Today, we're going to recommend that we replace 2 ambulances because we're not going to receive any ambulances until 2022. There's a significant delay in the manufacture of chassis and ambulances right now across North America because of what the manufacturer is saying because of the pandemic, a delay in providing computer chips that I guess are used in the manufacturing process, as well as there's an increase in costs that are incoming. We received a letter recently from the Crestline, who we purchased our ambulances from, that identified this, and it's in this report. I mentioned that. But in addition to that, they said that they are under pressure to be increasing, even though they've quoted us prices of ambulances 17 to 15% effective immediately. So that could have an impact to cost and purchase of the ambulance. So that's why I'm going to be recommending today that we look at replacing the ambulance that we have on schedule to purchase for next year and next budget cycle from the capital reserves in 2022, as well as the ambulance that we were intending to replace this year as well. So we'd be looking at purchasing 2 ambulances and shifting funding from this year in the capital reserves, and Corey can certainly speak to that if you have any questions on that, into next year. And then we would actually receive the ambulances both in 2022, and that would take care of the delays to order for the following year's ambulance, as well as save, I'm estimating somewhere between $26,000 and $56,000 by doing it that way. Part 2 of this ambulance purchase is that in order to meet our recommendations in terms of replacing stretchers, the ambulance purchase for this year quoted a stretcher, but that stretcher should actually be in the capital reserves for the stretcher, the striker cot funds. And so we would simply move the purchase of that stretcher into the reserves identified in this report. So we would be adding the purchase of that stretcher to that capital budget line. So it's a little bit different than we initially set up to do this year. And that stretcher is worth $22,500 purchase as well. So at the end of the day, if you were to look at the last page of this report, which is your package 181, you would see that in 2021, there's a list of how much an ambulance right now would cost. And we calculated with HST, and then in 2022, the same thing. Although I will note that the actual total with the HST for 2022 is actually $196,873, not $193,000, which was without tax. So if you look at that, those are the recommendations that we're making. So 1, to purchase the ambulance that we intended to purchase this year. 2, to purchase the ambulance that we would normally bring to you next year to purchase because of the delay and because of the price savings that we can receive right now. And then 3, to move forward with the purchase of stretcher this year so that we can continue to move forward with what we plan to do in our capital program at the beginning of this year and purchasing 2 stretchers in this calendar year. Questions?
Thanks, Mike. Questions for Mike on his report? Must have done a great job. I'm not seeing any hands. It's big dollars. Okay, I have a motion here. I'm going to read that staff be authorized to issue a purchase order to Crestline Coach Limited to replace 1 ambulance for a total of $186,892 plus applicable taxes as approved in the 21 capital budget. And that staff be authorized to include 1 additional ambulance for a total of $186,892 plus applicable taxes as scheduled to be replaced during the 2022 capital budget summary. And that staff be authorized to purchase 1 striker stretcher to be funded for a total of $22,500 plus applicable taxes and assess these funds through the EM 0011 Power Load Stretcher Capital Reserve. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any questions or comments before I call the vote? Sometimes you can consider things as want to have or need to have. This is a need to have. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Warden and Council.
Perfect. So we're going to keep going here. We're moving on in the morning. Public Works. Now, do we have Bill or John or both? I noticed Bill did some of the reports. It's nice to see the sand didn't drop over. Morning, Bill. Morning, John.
Good morning.
You guys are up. We're starting with your stockpile report. Sam.
Okay, thank you, Warden Aitchison, and good morning, Council. We issued tenders for the supply of winter sand for our 3 maintenance yards, as well as one of the maintenance facilities for Perth South. It's a 2-year contract covering this year's winter season and next year's winter season, with a built-in price adjustment for the second year of 2%. We did receive only 1 bid, which was from Boston and McCann Incorporated. They are the same contractor who held this contract the previous 2 years. The rates that are submitted are included in the report here. And only a couple other things to add, I guess. The tender was set up similarly as it was in previous years, where although this year we only received 1 bid, each location would have been awarded based on the low bid per that site, regardless of who the vendor was. And we did reach out to a couple of the contractors, and certainly at the time the bid was opened, we, sorry, that printer's fired up behind me. We reached out to the contractors while the bid was open to make them aware that the opportunity's there. We still ended up with just the 1 submission though, as noted in the report. And the price has increased from previous year's contracts for 2 of the 3 county yards. And it does represent an approximate increase of 15% on the operations budget for that item. And if there's any other questions on the report, happy to take them.
Questions? Councillor McKenzie.
Just a question, I guess, Bill. When you contacted the interested contractors, is there a particular reason why we're only getting 1 bid to come in at the end?
The response from the other contractor who has previously submitted a submission on this contract in previous years was due to workload on further operations. And then 1 other contractor vendor submitted a note saying that they didn't feel they'd be able to submit a competitive bid on this opportunity.
Other questions? Councillor Hurley, he had his hand in front of his face. I couldn't see him. Councillor Hurley.
No, yeah, Bill answered that very well. There's been a lot of trucks parked this year as well too. A tremendous amount of 15-year-old trucks, 20-year-old trucks parked, and drivers. There's a lot of baby boomers yet sitting in trucks, and they've all parked their trucks due to axle regulations, and it's really putting a damper on different things, speed, process, bids. Yeah, it's interesting times in the trucking world.
Other questions, comments? Don't see any. I have a motion. Perth County Council receives the tender results. 2021-031-10 supply hall mix and stockpile winter sand report for information. And the Perth County award tender 2021-031-10 to Boston's and McCann Incorporated for the unit rates submitted. And that council approved bylaw number 3835-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into an execution of an agreement between the corporation of the county of Perth and Boston's and McCann Incorporated. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, seconded by Deputy Warden Agates. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we're going to move on to the next one.
Yes, thank you, Warden. Good morning, Council. Well, Bill authored all three reports today, and thank you very much, Bill. I'm going to take the next one here in our winter maintenance contract for the 2021-2022 winter season. The county contracts out 2 of its 9 plow routes, with both runs out of our Milverton yard. The Murray Group has been providing contracted plows and operators to the county for over a decade. We've established a good working relationship, and their performance has been more than adequate. The county relies on these contracted services to complement our internal fleet in order to maintain existing service levels and meet or exceed the regulatory minimum maintenance standards. Council has previously approved an extension to this contract back in 2019, and that covered the last 2 winter seasons. Over the past year, staff had discussions with the Murray Group to outline expectations for a further contract extension. At this time, the Murray Group is prepared to commit to a 1-year contract extension with a proposed hourly rate of $140 per hour per truck and a standby rate of $100 per day per truck. For comparison, last season, the rate was $135 per hour and $75 a day for standby. While both parties desire a longer term contract, the contractor cites pending fleet replacement costs and other existing winter services contracts that are to be renewed in the upcoming year as factors. I should also note that the Murray Group operates under the umbrella of a much larger parent company. We've compared these hourly rates and standby rates with the industry and find them to be in line, if not less than the other service contracts. It is important to note that many municipalities are experiencing increased costs for winter maintenance contractors, and availability of these contractors is decreasing. These are concerns that we have expressed to council in the past. The contracted winter services are important to our operations and represents approximately 10% of our annual winter maintenance budget. Staff are currently exploring both short-term and long-term options and alternatives to help mitigate these impacts and effectively provide these services moving forward. Staff are recommending that council approve the 1-year contract extension with the Murray Group at the proposed rates. I will note that in the recommendation, the standby rate should read $100 per day per truck, and I believe the clerk and warden have the corrected recommendation in front of them, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for John with regards to this report? Don't see any hands. I have a motion here. Perth County Council receives the winter maintenance contract 2021/22 winter season report, and Perth County approved a 1-year extension of the winter maintenance services contract with the Murray Group Limited at a rate of $140 per hour and $100 per day standby per truck, excluding HST. And that Perth County Council approved bylaw number 3837-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of an agreement between the corporation of the county of Perth and the Murray Group Limited. Moved by Councillor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Wilhelm. Comments or questions? Those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Road closure.
Yeah, I'll speak to this report. Thank you, Warden. We
Thanks, Bill.
received a road closure request from the Stratford Warriors, who are the organizing committee for an air show that's planned at the Stratford Municipal Airport September 15th. The request was to close Perth Road 119 from line 39 to line 42, which is the block of highway that is right adjacent to the airport. Through conversation with Mr. Childerley of the Stratford Warriors, the closure request is to accommodate not only parking for this event, which is planned off of line 42, but also to satisfy some conditions of the snowboards who will be performing at that show. There's sort of a no-fly zone, I guess, that's required for further performances, and that extends over portions of the county road adjacent to the highway there. So the request is to close the road from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till approximately 8 o'clock. The show, I believe, runs from 3 o'clock till 6:45 or 7 o'clock. The county doesn't often receive these types of requests to close down our roads for community events. It's a thing that doesn't happen too often. That being said, it has happened in the past. So the recommendation before you is to approve the request to close this road on the dates requested. If there's any other questions to the report?
Questions for Bill on this report? Deputy Warden Higgins.
I presume this is a fundraising event that they're having when it's a hockey team. Is that what he indicated?
Yeah, it's a community fundraiser. I believe that most of the funds, though, will be directed to the hockey club, as they are the organizing committee. The OPP, the Stratford Police, and the City of Stratford are noted to be involved in the organization of it as well.
Okay, and I apologize. I didn't think of this till we were sitting here right now. Do we have a policy on how we handle, like, we've never, any of these requests that we're in a sense going to donate? Are we going to donate our time of staff, or are we going to charge them our time? Like, have we had other instances or anything like this before? I don't remember ever anything. So I'm just kind of wondering how we'll handle that part of it.
Okay. Yes, to answer your question, and John, you may step in here if you have some more history on this, but we do have a policy for special road closure requests. However, that policy is more of a road occupancy request, where the actual the event planned is going to occur on the county's road allowance in some sort. And this one did not really meet that part of the policy because it's simply a closure to accommodate traffic movement around the area rather than anything that's going to be occurring on the county road allowance. John, do you have anything to add to that? As far as I know, the policy does speak to recovering the cost in order to for any staff time or expenses incurred from county operations to facilitate it.
That's correct. Yeah, it's been very rare that we've had to issue permits for something like this. And typically, if they are requesting a road closure, we would like to see 6 to 8 weeks in advance notice. So we don't have that here. It's one of the reasons why this report is coming to County Council for your approval. Typically, the Director of Public Works would have delegated authority on something like this, but since it's not meeting some of the terms of the policy, and the policy may be a little gray in covering this type of event and reasoning. The policy does include, however, recovery of costs incurred by the county, and I think the report speaks to that. If there are costs associated with setting up detours, no parking signs and things of that nature, we would look to be invoicing the organizing committee.
Other comments or questions? Councilor Hurley?
No, I know the families involved, the farming community around the airport who are giving up fields for parking and such as well. I just heard about this all at the same time, actually. No, it's very unique how we're going to handle this versus expense recovery. I know Perth County residents have become very involved now at this point as well, but again, it's not a Perth County event, so it's unique. I definitely, if we were to flip this bill, a letter to the city of Stratford and the communities what we did and that we're wanting and kissing our toes, but no, we have to decide how we're going to cover these costs. If we do or if we don't, or we respectfully work with the neighboring municipality or city for that matter.
Other comments or questions? I've got a motion here.
I'll just say it, Jim. So
Oh,
just
sorry.
remember, it's not the little kids of Stratford Warriors. It's the old Stratford Culleton team. It's the junior team, because Childerley is the president of that. If it was the little kids, I think there'd be a different motion here on the floor to do it for free. I'm not sure, but for youth sports, but this is for the 16 to 21-year-old adults that would be the former Stratford Culletons when I read this.
I was pretty sure that was the team involved. Okay, I have a motion here. Perth County Council receives a request for road closure / Perth Road 119 report, and that Perth County Council authorize the staff to close Perth Road 119 from line 39 to line 42 on September 15th, 2021 for approximately 6 hours beginning at 2 p.m. Well, there's no cost recovery on here, but it's in the report that the cost recovery is part of a.
I think it should be.
Okay, I'm gonna add that to this at 2 p.m. with cost recovery. Moved by Councillor McKenzie. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McDermott. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Can you guys just stay on the line there for a little bit? There's an item coming up in consent agenda that you may have to speak to. That's okay. So we're moving on to council reports. And we're going to start with the official plan amendment 6.3.a. And Todd, do you want to speak to that just briefly?
Yes, thank you, Warden Aitchison and members of County Council. This request for a consideration to direct staff to prepare a report for us or to prepare directly an amendment to item or section 6.3a of the current official plan came to my attention during the deliberations of North Perth Council on the subject of the official plan amendment that we earlier processed in this meeting. And at that time, it was realized that there's actually a curious clause in 6.3a, which I will read out, that prohibits certain types of external or exterior second dwelling units. So the section 6.3a, amongst other things, says a second dwelling unit may be permitted within any detached, semi-detached, or row house dwelling, or within any building or structure accessory to such a dwelling that is more than 5 years in age and on the same lot as the dwelling. And it's that last clause that is more than 5 years in age and on the same lot as the dwelling that I have a concern about. So I've raised this with planning. It was, as I said, discovered during my discussions with planning related to the official plan amendment we earlier saw. And I think that this clause about 5 years in age is actually the key prohibitor of the possibility of tiny homes being installed in lots, residential lots in Perth County. For me, I'm in favor of providing all means to try to infill on existing residential lots at this point in time. And I think this restriction of 5 years of age is unnecessary. So my proposition to council is that we either ask or direct staff to prepare a very brief report, because I think there's only a few words there that need to be removed with regards to an official plan amendment to address that subject, so that we can unleash the possibility of tiny homes emerging in our communities. I think that summarizes it, Mr. Warden. I know you and I briefly spoke about this, so if you have additional comments, I'd be happy, of course, to hear them too.
Well, yeah, we did speak about it, and we were looking for some support. And that's where you came in and phoned some other members of council. But anyway, what this is, what we're really looking to do is to get rid of that 5-year clause. So that the potential for some further inhabitant dwellings is potential. And I talked to Sally about it, and she is available. Oh, there's Sally right there. Any comment on that, Sally? Like we talked, and I said we weren't going to proceed with this if we didn't have support. It seems we have support. So can you comment as to what the report might entail here to get rid of that 5-year clause?
Yeah, from a reporting perspective, through you, Warden Aitchison, to council, the wording here, the restriction that the accessory building be 5 years old already, is not in line with the provincial policy statement or the Planning Act and the regulations that were brought forward through Bill 108. So this is something that we would be looking to update and change, remove this language in the new OP. An amendment now would be fairly straightforward from a drafting perspective. And of course, we would have to see what happens through public consultation, if there's any concerns or questions that arose from it. You will find in the next meeting of council, there was an application in North Perth for a family who is wanting to build a new accessory structure in their backyard for an additional residential unit. And so they submitted an official plan amendment to overcome this particular wording. And that has been to North Perth Council and will be coming to County Council with a recommendation to approve next month. So just a little bit of insight and more background there. Again, it's a question of, do we continue to amend the plan or do we just work on the new one? But this one is pretty straightforward and currently really limiting to folks who have intentions and enthusiasm towards additional residential units and housing options for family members and for income potential.
Thanks, Sally. So that report's coming back shortly, and we don't need a motion to get that report, do we not? Or do we need a motion?
I think we could have a motion.
Okay, I need a motion to approve for that report to come back. Oh, I got it? Oh, already moved it on me? Oh, okay, here we go. Sorry about that. The Council of the County of Perth directs staff to prepare a report on an official plan amendment for section 6.3A, second dwelling units, in order to align the official plan policy with provincial changes made under 16.3 of the Planning Act by Bill 108, More Homes, More Choice, and Ontario Regulation 299/19 regarding additional residential units, and that the update to section 6.3A permit a ARU in an accessory structure regardless of the structure's age by removing the reference to the requirement that the accessory structure be at least 5 years in age prior to establishing an ARU within it. Moved by Councillor Kassenberg. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McKenzie. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we're going to move on to the rest of the consent agenda items we moved down. We're going to start with 5.8. But you, Todd?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. I think it appropriate perhaps to offer support to item 5.8. I found the the intent of that motion, sorry, let me just jump back to it here, or that correspondence to be compelling, and certainly the issue of insurance in the municipal world is significant right now. Most municipalities have seen substantial increases. We know it's a hard insurance market, but dealing with joint and several is a pretty high priority, and I think that it warrants us echoing the comments from the municipality of Leamington on this matter.
Okay, other comments with regards to that? Does council want to support that? Do I have a mover or a seconder? I got a mover, I got a seconder, and Councillor Duncan. The mover is Councillor Kasenberg to support that 5.8. Joint and several liability. Any comments or questions? Those in favor? That's carried. Okay, we'll move on to 5.11. I think that's you too, Councillor Kasenberg.
Lucky me. There is a letter, and I think my concern at this point is, of course, that this particular item is directed to the federal government, which has the parliament has been dissolved. So we may be in a situation where it's not necessary for us to send correspondence to the federal government, but I don't know, maybe the CAO or the clerk can advise us on this, but I think that support for the action, Mr. Julian's private member bill, which obviously died on the table when Parliament was dissolved, is a potentially useful activity. However, as I said, I acknowledge Parliament has been dissolved, all that legislation wiped clean, so perhaps there's no point at this point.
Okay. For the comments on 5.11. So would you rather deal with, Councillor Duncan?
As Councillor Kasenberg has said, because the legislation has died, and myself, I have no idea what was in that private member's bill. I'd have a hard time putting any support behind a letter at this point without being able to read what was in the bill myself. So I wouldn't be in support of sending any letters at this point.
Other comments? Councillor Kasenberg?
I'll just echo that, I drew this to our attention, but I agree that procedurally the slate has been wiped clean, and so there's probably not a lot of point at this point. There's an intent, but there's nothing for us to actually see acted on at this point, unfortunately. So.
Okay, so basically what we may do is at some point down the road, come back to this.
Indeed.
We'll see who gets elected in the election. Okay, 5.17, prostrate blood testing. Actually, we're going to do 5.19 first, apparently. Todd has to get away, and that's the support of the 988 hotline, right? Yes.
So, yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. I went back and forth with the clerk. It turns out that we have already supported such an initiative at this council, and so I don't think another letter of support is necessary. My apologies that my memory is like a sieve.
Well, I thought we had, and I was going to ask that question, so thank you very much for that verification. So 5.17, prostrate blood testing. I thought we dealt with this, but we haven't at the county level, but we did pass support at Perth South. So whoever brought that up, was that Daryl? Daryl?
Oh, yeah, it was. Thank you. I know some good advice here, I would say, and I'd like to see if county council would support this. I've done a little digging myself, and I believe it's good to have that in there, that's for sure, with our healthcare. Thank you.
Just so you know, I think I mentioned that our Perth South meeting, I think the cost to get that test is $58 from a personal experience. Todd, you had your hand up?
Having worked a number of years, many years ago, in the issue of urology and BPH and prostate cancer, I can say that it's been a long battle to try to get the Ontario health system to actually fund the cost of that test. That test has, in my mind, definite value. and certainly I think that this is worthy of support. I will point out that it is not a unanimous belief in the medical community that PSA has true screening value, but certainly it has a range of values and to medicine and to the interpretation of patient circumstances, and so I'm fully supportive of this. Like I said, this was an issue back in 2005.
Harold, do you want to make that a motion to support that? Councillor Hurlick, I should say.
I'll make a motion to support that.
Do I have a seconder? That would be Councillor Kazenberg. And just before we call that to a vote, I think it's definitely something we should support. It may not be perfect, but it's a pretty good indicator as to which direction you might be going. Those in favor of that motion? Perfect. Carried. Thank you very much. Now we're at 5.23, and this is where we lost our two boys from Public Works. So that is the Community Safety Zone, Perth County. Ron, Deputy Warden Agus, did you bring that out? You pulled that out, right?
Yes, I asked for that one to be pulled. I believe Bill's coming back here. Maybe he can. And John, they can add some comments on it.
Okay, so we're dealing with the Community Safety Zone, Perth County. The request letter we got in the mail. Have you seen that, Bill or John?
Yep.
Comments on that?
Yeah, through you, Warden Aitchison. Sorry, I just sort of missed what Deputy Warden Eggets was saying there as we were rejoining, but we have received other correspondence as well with regard to speed in Shakespeare. And staff, we've already reached out to the OPP as we need to collect speed data as a first step in this process. So with community safety zones, we do have 3 within the county. The last one being in 2016 in the village of Broadhagen. And with that, there was significant input from the OPP and the West Perth Police Services Board. So we're going to be looking at to work with the OPP in a similar fashion here for Shakespeare when we report back to council. So we'll be covering a number of topics within that report.
Councillor Height.
John, can you refresh me? Just last meeting, we lowered the speed limit in front of all the schools on county roads, right? So there is a school adjacent to that road there in Shakespeare. It's just down, you turn west, just turn down the side road. I'm saying, and the kids walk to school there, they cross that. So it shouldn't be that hard. You need police enforcement, of course. We can put all the signs we want. Till you have an OPP sitting there and charge 50 people in a day. Daryl, you get on that. That's your job in Shakespeare. So.
Other comments or questions? Councilor McKenzie?
Just a question, I guess, to somebody from Perth East. Have you contacted the OPP about having a focus patrol in that particular area? There's one.
In which area are you referring to, Walter?
Yeah, Shakespeare in particular. Like certainly that's a service that is available from the OPP, and they would designate some manpower to that particular area to to help resolve the issue.
At this point, we haven't, because they people that keep contacting us are zoning in on a county road and not the village as per se. So at this point, not to my knowledge that we have contacted the OPP.
So what you're saying then is it needs to be the county that asks the OPP for a focus patroller?
No,
I think Perth East would be the one that would do that. They're the ones that pay for the enforcement in that.
Perth East would ask for it within the municipality, but what we're hearing is they're focusing more on Road 107 or the county road. They keep asking about the county road, so that's not Perth East, that's the county.
But it's still within Perth East municipality. Like, I think you could still ask for focus patrol in that area.
Right, but we haven't got a report yet at Perth East Council, and it will come next week from the same group. So they missed the last council meeting, And it's supposed to come to our next council meeting, and that's not till next week. So our council
Wilhelm.
dealt with this.
In Perth South, we have major issues with speeding through our hamlets too, and they're county roads, and we certainly have talked with the Stratford Police about patrolling and control, and it's great that they slow down when the police are there, and then they forget about the speed when they're not there. So I've even gone as far as asked the chief to look into the legal ramifications and costs on photo radar. And if that's something that is feasible, I would certainly be requesting it come back to county council to look at countywide.
So John and Bill, do you want to do some homework and come back with some sort of report on this?
Through you, Warden, yes, and that, I think that was part of the correspondence there for, they requested municipal enforcement cameras. So that's automated speed enforcement, and Bill and I will be happy to do some research. We need to work with the OPP and certainly Perth East as well. So just to clarify things, yeah, there is a school in Shakespeare. It's not on the county road, but there is a school crossing, which typically, and Bill, I think you worked on this previously, was part of one of the things that you worked on there at Perth East. So we'll look at all the speed data. We'll work with the OPP, and we've already initiated those requests.
Other comments or questions? Councilman McKenzie?
One other thing that we've found that works fairly well in West Perth to slow the traffic up is the speed signs. And I know the county has, I believe they've got two in Dublin right now in the area of the school there. But I don't know whether you've tried that in Shakespeare or not, but all you have to do is just stand by and watch, and the cars see that speed sign, especially if they're near an actual sign that dictates what the speed limit is. And you can just see the brake lights come on every time.
Councilor Hurley?
No, that's for sure. Walter cleared up there. I mean, you go into Ambro is a prime one as well. Those new electronic speed signs, they work. We know they work. And I think we're going to see what comes out of Perth East here. It's very unique. As much as this is a school crossing, it's almost like the gateway to the school. The school is an extra couple hundred yards, but the whole village goes in that way from the whole corner of Shakespeare, takes that one path right in. You might as well say it's the main entrance to half the school population. It goes in there. It's a very, very busy crossing, entranceway almost to the school. There's just a side street, but no thanks.
Okay, so I'm only going to make one comment. We have one of those in the village of St. Paul's community safety zone. The only time the traffic slows down is when the police are sitting in the village or sitting at the school patrolling. I'll guarantee you that right now. I sat on one of the owners in St. Paul's front deck the other day because he phoned me up and said, "You come up here and watch the speed of this traffic." Well, 15 minutes later, the Stratford police drove by and parked by the railway tracks, and it reduced about half. So my second comment to that is you can't fix stupid. Just telling you.
It's been a while.
Been a while. It had to come out. Like on my road, and you've seen the POA revenue jump today. I will bet dollars to donuts the majority of that increase has come off of Perth Line 20 from the Stratford Police Department. I was going to ask maybe I could get that information. I watch every day at least 20 vehicles stopped between the school and the village by the Stratford Police. Daily. It's a daily occurrence. They call it a fruitful road. Anyway, we're going to refer that back to staff for report. And do we need a motion?
Yes, a referral motion.
Okay, I need to refer a motion. Deputy Warden Eggets, seconded by Councilor McDermott. Those in favor? That's carried. So we'll await that report. Thanks, guys. Okay, and we also need a motion to receive 511 and 5.19, so it's on the books. We need the motion just to receive those, Counselor Wilhelm, second by Counselor Duncan. Those in favor, it's carried. Okay, now we're gonna notice the motions. Don't see any. Other business. I have other business right here from the CAO.
Thank you, through the warden. For council, just was going to request a special council meeting, and I was looking at two dates, the alternate dates in October, and this would be for a matter relating to security of municipal property, and there'd be the other provision of negotiation in there. And I understand, I was looking at the 14th as the meeting to bring this to, because I understood the other date, the 28th of October, doesn't work for some members of council. Now the 14th, I've heard back from some, doesn't work either. So what I can do is go back to senior management. We'll look at targeting the 21st of October and adjusting the agenda so that we can accommodate the time needed. We'll need probably 2 hours to deal with this one particular item. So I will get back to staff on that if that will work for council.
Deputy Warden Agats.
Can we not pick another day, like have a doodle poll?
Yes.
Go see if we can, like, I don't know why it always has to be a Thursday. There's other days of the week too, like, or maybe they won't work either, but I'm just wondering why we can't like a Wednesday or a Tuesday, or why we always have to focus on a Thursday.
Thank you. Through the warden, I'm more than happy. We will do to accommodate that, we will do a doodle poll. We'll come up with a handful of dates and see what works best for council. We will give you dates that are beyond Thursday in the week. So I appreciate that feedback, and we'll move forward with that later today. Thank you.
Okay. In order to try and get this meeting accomplished a little quicker, because it's been going on for a while, I did pass over bylaws. Didn't get corrected on the procedural there. So anyway, I have 3 bylaws we have to pass. One being bylaw 3835-2021, signing authorization, supply haul, mix and stockpile winter sand. And that bylaw 3835-2021 be read a first, second, and third time and pass the second day of September 2021. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, seconded by Councillor McDermott. Those in favor, that would be carried. And then I have bylaw number 3836-2021, regulate and destruction or injuring of trees. And that bylaw 3836-2021 be read a first, second, and third time, and finally pass the second day of September 2021. Moved by Councillor Callum, seconded by Deputy Warden Agats. Those in favor, that's carried. And then I have bylaw 3837-2021, the signing authorization for winter ice and snow control equipment rental. And the bylaw 3837-2021 be ready first, second, and third time, and finally pass the second day of September 2021. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott. Those in favor, that's carried. Okay, and then I have bylaw 3838-2021, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of the county of Perth at its regular meeting held September 2nd, 2021, is read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed September 2nd, 2021. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Those in favor, carried. And best and least of all, a motion to adjourn at 12:26. Moved by Councillor McDermott, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Those in favor, it's carried. Thank you very much. It's been a long morning, but I thank you for your indulgence.